point. I love that little message. Okay, it says the Hangout's on air, so... Okay, let's do it. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Friday 3D Printing Community Hangout on August 24th, and welcome to our new home. This is the permanent home of the Friday 3D Printing Community Hangout stream. So from now on, instead of hopping from YouTube channel to YouTube channel to YouTube channel, we have consolidated into a single channel. We'll still be rotating out hosts, and we'll still be doing various topics and stuff like that. It's just now we have a single home. So with that said, make sure that you hit the subscribe button and the little bell next to it so you're notified when we post new content, like little bumper videos, and when we go live. So with that being said, I also want to mention the fact that we now have an EU stream, so the European stream. And that will also be hosted on this channel too. The first one went great, and we have the second one coming up next Friday right here on the Friday 3D Printing Community Hangout stream channel. That is a mouthful, holy crap. Anyway, so tonight we are going to be talking about the wonderful world of multi-material and multicolor printing. As most of you have seen this week, Mosaic announced the release of their second, or technically third product, because you had the Palette and the Palette Plus, but now we have the Palette 2, and it is a complete new iteration of their multicolor system. So we've got Mitch with Mosaic joining us tonight. Mitch is a co-founder. And we also have Shane from Prusa, who is going to be talking about the MMU2, which most of us who are Prusa owners are very, very familiar with and have been also salivating over. So we're going to be talking about, you know, what the two main offerings that are coming out kind of look like, and how 3D printing in general is being transformed by multicolor and multi-material printing. So without any further ado, we want to go ahead and start the night off like we start every Friday night stream off and do introductions. So Matt is currently out of the moment. So, well, no, there's Matt. Matt, go ahead and shoot us your introduction.
Hey, everybody. I'm Matt from How I Do It. I know Joe Mike already welcomed you guys to the new Friday night channel. I'd like to welcome you myself as well. And, of course, say thank you to Joe Mike for hosting the very first one on the official channel. I'm just a maker. I'm a generalist. I do a little bit of everything. I just got 2-foot rolls of vinyl decals because my daughter's cheerleading squad and football team, I'm making their car decals for them to sell as a fundraiser. We sort of just got into vinyl stuff, so like I just like learning how to do things and doing things as much as I can myself. So my channel, my content is a little bit of everything. A lot of 3D printing because I do quite a bit of that. But woodworking, metalworking, automotive stuff, general repairs, whatever the case may be. So I'm actually going to end up doing a live stream probably tomorrow, if I have time, of doing vinyl cutting and stuff like that. So a little nerve-wracking taking 24-inch rolls of vinyl to the table saw to cut them down to 12 inches. So that's me. You can find me youtube.com/howidoit.
Well, that's how you do it. So if it works, it works.
It is.
Next up, we got first time on our stream, and welcome, Mitch. Go ahead and introduce yourself and who you are, and you know why exactly you're here tonight.
Sure. Yes, I'm Mitch DeBora. I'm one of the co-founders of Mosaic Manufacturing, based here in Toronto, Canada. Thank you for having me on the show. This is, like you said, my first time. I'm glad to be here to talk about what is my favorite topic, multi-material 3D printing. We'll talk a lot about, I hope, you know, what we do at Mosaic and what we're bringing to market with Palette 2 and Canvas, but we are a company that exists to try and make multi-material 3D printing a standard across the industry, and excited to talk about how, you know, what we did this week and what's happening with Prusa and across the industry, I think is really going to change in the next couple of years, the way that the industry looks, whereas for the past 10, it's looked pretty similar. So a lot of exciting stuff happening, and I'm glad to be here. So thanks again for having me.
Well, thank you very, very much for hopping on and coming in and talking to the 3D printing community. I know that you've already done a video with Joel, and it was a great video. And we've seen so many other cool posts about the palette too. And I mean, I've personally put in my pre-order, and I know a lot of people who have put in their pre-order. So it'll be fun to talk in and dig into that and kind of see, you know, because the Palette Plus is over in the corner banging away right now. So
amazing.
Okay, next up is Mr. Richard Murray.
Hello, Richard Murray. As mentioned, my channel is the ZIDIM channel, ZIDIM, and my focus is on 3D printing for model trains, although I've ended up doing a whole lot of other things for that. And looking at what's coming out, yeah, I just ordered MK23 or MK3. So one of those number collections. I'll add that to my mix, and finally have my Maya back up and running. So things are printing out scenery, train parts, and actually stuff for friends for broken bits of their saws and things like that. And for a commercial coffee roaster, parts for it. So you end up doing all sorts of things for this. So I hope in 2 weeks to be back to being live every Wednesday. I've been off for about 6 months due to health issues, but I'm back in Studio A here, a lot more room, and screens are coming, a workbench is coming in, and yeah, next week I hopefully start building my next Prusa.
All right, yeah, you got an MK3 on the way. Got to get that thing put together and put to work.
Yeah.
All right, speaking of Prusa, we got Shane from Prusa, who is joining us audio only at the moment. Shane, why don't you go ahead and give us what you got?
Hey guys, first off, thank you very much for the invite. I'm very happy to be here. I've been as a regular viewer with you guys for the last few shows. So first off, I just want to apologize. Joseph and the guys from Prague couldn't be here because right now it is 4:10 in the morning over there. So it's a wee bit of a time difference. For those of you who have met me, I work for Prusa. I do their technical support on their chat service. I also go to the US shows and everything, and I help them test out various things as well from time to time from different products, software, and material. And I've been with Prusa now since January of 2017.
Awesome. And so you've had a chance to mess with the new MMU unit?
Maybe. It might be going off behind me. Who knows? No. I do apologize not for being on video. It's just right now I'm also working right now. So I just need to kind of focus on two things at once. So I can't do audio plus do the chat. So I do apologize for no video during this time.
That's no problem at all.
Joseph knows you're streaming, Shane.
I'm sorry?
I said, careful, Shane. Joseph knows you're streaming.
Oh, believe me, when you guys gave me the invite and everything else, I just screen capped it and I shot it over to him just so he knows what I'm doing.
Appreciate both you and Mitch joining us. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, anytime. Yeah, anytime you want to hop on, feel free. So that brings us to John at You Do It.
Hi, thanks for having me on again. I want to really say that this is really an awesome group to be part of. I'm looking at the progression of this, how you had a couple of hangouts, and then now we're getting to the point where we got shirts, and now look at it. We have a EU version. We have heavy hitters who are coming on the live stream and talking about some cool stuff. It's just it's really awesome, and I'm really happy to be part of it. And I like the video that you put out ahead of time, the little teaser there, the bumper you did, Joe. That was awesome.
That's my SNL advertisement.
Yeah. So this is becoming a real professional operation. It is. I mean, it's a lot of time and effort, but I think one of the things that we notice is that the more you do it, the more efficient you become. So it doesn't seem like it's so much of an effort anymore. So speaking of that, I'm going to a thing called Video Marketing World. And that's a conference where 500 attendees get to join and network with 40 of the YouTube and Facebook's best live streamer people who can help you craft. And what I plan on doing is after that, sharing what I've learned with everyone after I digest it all, because it's going to be a lot, I'm sure. I'm going to be on overload and not be able to share everything right away. But I'll share everything with you. The thing is, we're all trying to get that 1,000 subscriber and 4,000 watch time hours in within 12-month period, so you can then monetize your channel and all that. And so they're there to help with that, but then they're there to help with the next thing. You reach 10,000 subscribers. All right, what's the next thing? You reach 100,000 subscribers. What's the next thing? So they help you fine tune where you have to go. And then as far as my channel, I'm You Do It. My channel name is UDOIT2. That's how you find me. I'm going to have two parts of my channel. Like, I'm down the shore right now in Wildwood, but the first part is my making and everything, but then the other part is going to be helping other YouTubers. I did a talk when I was at Earth, and the talk at Earth was geared towards, you should really become a YouTuber, because things that you do for 3D printing and you do it for yourself, consider it a selfish act if you don't share it with other people. If you share it with other people, you're potentially helping to inspire somebody else who then they may see your idea and say, wow, you know what, if you could do that, I could do this. So, and that's what my focus is. So, hey, thank you. And I'll probably pop off shortly. We're trying to start something else. Thank you.
John, always a pleasure to have you. So, yeah, my name is Joe Mike Terranella, if you really want the last name. That is my YouTube channel name as well. If that's where you can find me. And I'm very much on the Twitters, Mojike on Twitter, and then I've got Instagram. And I try to keep kind of the two balanced. So Twitter is where I do a lot of my 3D printing posts, and Instagram is where I put a lot of my personal stuff. For those of you who don't know yet, I just became a father a couple of weeks ago. And so it's been very scattered postings of baby 3D prints, babies and 3D prints. So I'm not seeing any time where that's going to stop. So if you don't like baby pictures, you might not want to hit me on the Instagram as much. But anyway, I'm tonight's host, and I am incredibly honored to be the first host on the new channel. I've been with the Friday 3D Printing Community Hangout for a while. I wasn't with it at the very beginning, but as soon as I found out about it, it was something that I wanted to absolutely be a part of. Community is huge. And those of you who know me know that community is a huge deal to me. And I believe that this is one of the best things that we have as a community, is just, us creators coming together and just talking about the things that are out there. Tonight, that thing is the progression of 3D printing to the point to now we can print in color. So if we take a step back and look at the genesis of 3D printing, at least in the way that we utilize it, we go back to, let's say, the RepRap project, and we're looking at these old machines that were printing with a trimmer line. And now we're to the point to where not only do we have so many different form factors of machine and various price points, but we have so many different types of filaments that we can print in so many vibrant and amazing colors. And it's been so long that we were limited to printing a color at a time, or at least one color at a time through a single nozzle. We've had dual extrusion for a while, so two nozzles, two extruders hooked up to one hot end. And then there's like the BCN Bondtech or BCN way where you have two separate independent carriages. But either way, that required two nozzles. So not too long ago, both Mosaic Manufacturing and Prusa introduced a way to do up to 4 materials on one nozzle. So that was the original palette, and then the multi-material unit upgrade for the MK2, both of which were game changers, and both of which were, let's be honest, a little buggy, a little, you know, bit kind of learning curve there to get used to working and with, and a lot of process that went into getting a print from a single color to a multicolor. But here we are, 2018, with two new offerings coming out. We've got the Palette 2 and the Palette 2 Pro, and then we've got the MMU2, which is now being upgraded from 4 materials to 5 materials. And from what I've seen from it, it works beautifully on the MK3. So we're at a point now where I feel like multicolor material and multi-material printing is going to become more and more mainstream. At least I hope so. So with that, that's why we wanted to get Mitch and Shane in the chat tonight and get talking about kind of where they feel that we are in the progression of color 3D printing. I know that both of them are probably on a time crunch, so we want to be respectful of their time. We're incredibly humbled and thankful that they have taken the time to come and talk to us here on the stream. So first off, since you're, you know, right on I kind of go from left to right on my screen, and Mitch, that means that you're up on my screen. So for those of you who don't know, Mitch is one of the co-founders, and he said it in his introduction, but he's one of the co-founders of Mosaic Manufacturing. Mosaic is the maker of the palette, and the palette is one of the most widely used multicolor and kind of multi-material 3D printing apparatuses that you can hook up to pretty much any printer that runs 1.75 diameter filament. Mosaic just recently posted and announced the Palette 2 and the Palette 2 Pro. So Mitch, I have your stuff kind of pulled up here. So if you want to go ahead and talk about the Palette 2 and the Palette 2 Pro and kind of, you know, the R&D that you put into it and why you feel like this is the next generation of color printing and multi-material printing. And while you're doing that, I might flip-flop back and forth between your website and you. So
absolutely, yeah. Thanks for the segue there. And maybe I'll start, before jumping right into product, just to kind of double down on what you said about what multi-material has been to date in the industry. Between dual extruders and some other approaches, it's always kind of been there. But if you talk to people, and I think you guys would probably agree with this, there's always been this stigma around it that, you know, it's complicated, it's unreliable. Some of the leading printer companies in the world had on their website experimental. And we think that was really hurting things. So we really lucky to have an incredible community that's been supporting us for over 4 years now. We launched on Kickstarter with Palette, like you said. And maybe a year or so after that, we began asking the question, what is it going to take to have the perfect multi-material experience, i.e. the exact same simplicity as printing in single color, or at least the experience with some of the best printers right now. So we had a couple people, Brendan and Bobby in Toronto, formed sort of a team in the background while we were making Palette Plus as amazing as it could be. And they actually began working on Palette 2 2.5 years ago to create an incredibly easy one-click printing experience. So jumping into the product, one thing I'll explain for anybody who isn't familiar with Palette 2 or the way Mosaic does things, we are one of the most widely used multicolor, multi-material technologies in the world, yet we do not make a 3D printer. That's not our game. Our game is to focus, all 20 of us right now are focused on this one technology and trying to help anyone with any printer be able to use it. So to explain how that's even possible, why don't we jump into the page you have up there for Palette 2. So what Palette 2 does is it takes in up to 4 different filaments. Those can be different colors, so maybe 4 colors of PLA or PTG, or it can be 4 different materials. So maybe a TPU for flexibility, a PVA or PVB for water soluble, and a couple rigid materials like different colors of PTG. And what that means is that instead of printing things that are a single color, you can now print things that are different colors or different materials, so that you can print the thing you actually wanted to print, the thing you downloaded or the thing you made in CAD, without having to consolidate it into that single color model. And so many different use cases. Maybe we can jump into a few of them. But if you are watching this right now, you probably are 3D printing. If you think about some of the things you've been printing, where you've had to go to that single color, a technology like Palette 2 can unlock the ability for you to print in multicolor and actually on your printer. So the only compatibility requirements with Palette 2 are that your printer prints in 1.75 millimeter filament, and that you are open to, or that your slicer isn't closed. So for instance, if you're able to use something like Cura or Simplify 3D, then now you can use either Mosaic's Canvas or Mosaic's offline tool, Chroma, to get your prints ready for printing. Maybe I'll pause there for a second. If there's any specific questions you want to ask, I'd be happy to answer them, and then we can kind of walk through the products a little more.
Well, real quick, I do have both Canvas and Chroma open because I've been using both of them. So I was part of the Canvas beta test for a little bit there. And so here's a little bit of what is being offered with Canvas. And Mitch, I'll let you talk about that a little bit more here. But so far, this is all web-based. So it's canvas3d.io, and it's completely different. So now it's a whole ecosystem that's being built around your product. So what I did in the past is I would slice in Simplify 3D like this, and then I would then take the G code and pop it in. Oh, well, just lost it because of the, I just exported it already. But anyways, I would then import it into Chroma and assign my colors via the tools and all that stuff, and then export it out. And then I'd have to make sure that one file went to the SD card and then one file went to my printer. And it was kind of a, a process. It was definitely a process that required a lot of moving, well, a lot of me moving around, we'll put it that way. Whereas, you'll talk about it more here in a second, but you can now integrate Canvas into the whole ecosystem, and then you've got the hub and the Palette 2. And so, when we get into the product family, I really want you to talk a lot about that, because I really like how you can drag and drop colors on Canvas. So this is neat. I really like this feature a lot. It wasn't, fully. I didn't know how to do it at first. I was trying to assign colors the old way, and I was looking around over here, where do I put it? And then I started dragging. I was like, oh, holy crap, this is so much easier. And of course, you've got the purge block, and that's one thing that we can talk about a whole lot later when it comes to multicolor printing. But anyway, yeah. So I just wanted to kind of, while we are on my computer screen, show the difference between Canvas and Chroma.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So why don't we jump in there? Yeah, so Chroma was kind of something we came out with, and we're going to continue to support so that if people want to be using an offline solution, they have something that has all the power to slice and get them ready for printing. But we got a lot of feedback from people saying, this workflow of dragging something in, it's a bit clunky. When something changes in the slicer, compatibility needs to be updated. And they were asking for features that we just couldn't build or that weren't fundamentally possible given the way most slicers work. One of them being, and something I really want to talk about, which is the ability to actually color models. So we began building Canvas to focus on a multi-material experience, not a single color workflow that kind of has dual extruder support, but something that was built for the ground up. And this process of using Canvas, what I hope that you experienced and what will continue to get substantially better over the next few months, is that when you bring models into Canvas, it's intuitive. It knows what you want to do. So if you bring in multiple models, it groups them together because it knows you're going to do a multi-material print. You choose your 4 colors on the side, you drag and paint them on, or drag and drop them on, and then you're ready to go. And one other thing that we do to make Canvas really, really easy to get started with is that you can actually drag in a profile from any other slicer you're using. So say you're using Cura, bring in your profile. Canvas will automatically generate a profile for you so that you don't have to worry about compatibility or any of the settings. Everything transfers over and you're ready to go. Yeah. So that's Canvas. That's where the experience starts with multi-material printing, whether it be on Palette or on a dual extruder printer soon or other types of multi-material technology. Palette will not or the vision for palette for Canvas is certainly not to be only locked down to palette technology.
Yeah, and that's exactly one of the great things about this was I was able to take my S3D factory file and import it straight into Canvas, and was able to retain all my slicer settings for this particular filament, and it was pretty much just import all that, import some calibration data from my Palette Plus, and it was off to the races with this. So as far as simplicity of setup, nailed it.
Thank you. The Canvas team will really appreciate that. And I should say, Canvas actually hasn't fully been released yet. Canvas is in an open beta right now. So the functionality that's there is, the most important stuff. But literally every week, every month, there's going to be really powerful new features coming out. G-code visualization is, top of the priority list, I know, for the team. And Canvas is going to continue to get more and more powerful. So excited for that. But one thing that there's been a lot of talk about that I want to explain a little bit more, because I personally geek out about this, and I know a lot of people are excited. A lot of the models online right now, so a lot of people have the ability to CAD their own stuff, but most people don't, especially those who are getting into 3D printing now. And they go on Thingiverse or any of the sites that host 3D models for free. They download them and they want to print them. But majority of those models are a single color or a single material. And that's a bit of a barrier to multicolor, multi-material printing being adopted, is that there isn't a great base of models out there. So one thing we are building into Canvas is the ability to bring in a single color model and to actually paint the model. So you can imagine if you want to be putting your name on something, or even if you had that model, like a piece from the game Settlers of Catan, if you wanted to bring in the single color version, which is available on Thingiverse, and paint on your own design, you can do that in a few strokes and then be ready to go printing. That's something that at a technology level is incredibly hard to do, and is only possible because we're in the slicer now. So the team's working on that, and we're really, really excited to bring it to market, because we think that it'll really, it'll create that the critical mass of content that people need, some people need, to adopt multi-material 3D printing.
Yeah, and that, I gotta say, is probably one of the most, one of the most anticipated features of Canvas, as far as what I've been reading on, the Facebook group and Twitter posts, and even with myself included. In fact, when I got into the beta, I was really disappointed when I found out that I couldn't do it in the beta, because I was like bringing in models on, like, I can color anything now. And but I mean, I'm like knomping at the bit now for that feature, because that's something. I mean, like. So for those who aren't familiar with how multi-material models are handled at the moment, they're actually literally 4 separate STL files that you merge together to create a single model. So like if you're in S3D here, and I have 4 separate STL models, each one representing a different color, this is how it imports. They're all scattered about. So you can see where the trees are and the mountain is, and then where all the little accessories are, and then the main plate. And what I have to do is get in, do that, and then align. I
don't think you're sharing your screen there.
Do what? I'm
not sure your screen's being shared, just so you know, right now.
You're absolutely right. Oh, man, I'm on top of this today. Sleep deprivation has its perks. Okay, so this is how it imports. So you can see that it imports all with the different pieces spread out everywhere. And what we have to do then is combine them back by aligning them all together. So now we've got all the individual pieces of this model, which has been cut into 4 different STLs, so you can print it with 4 different colors. And basically what they're saying that Canvas is going to be able to do is you can import this as a single STL into Canvas, and then be able to literally paint onto the model to be able to distinguish what color goes where. Is that pretty much right?
That's exactly it. Yeah. And it's one thing I should maybe add to this is that, like you said, that multi STL workflow, it's clunky, but that's also not the way a lot of people design. In industry, and people who are using 3D printing for industry applications, which I think is really, really compelling, in addition to the things that I usually use it for, sort of at a more prosumer level. In CAD, people usually represent color in a 2D image. So if it's a company logo on the side of something, if it's a heat map around a part, that is, it's a pixel map on the outside of a surface. It's not different STL bodies. So yeah, I think this different way of representing color, we think is going to kind of fortify design in the future so that it becomes more compatible with FDM multi-material 3D printing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think for people who, maybe don't own Simplify 3D, Simplify 3D makes it pretty easy, and I've played with it in Cura. But getting these models and putting them back together. But you guys have a pretty good tutorial on how to use Mesh Mixer to break a single file apart into a multi-part model. But that's still a lot of extra work on top of just bringing in a single model and being able to paint it. So I think that might help the average consumer who doesn't want to go through all that to really embrace multicolor printing.
Jeremiah, I've been paying attention to the chat, and
there's a lot of questions.
Yeah, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and technically 5. One of those is my question.
Okay.
Actually, the universal question that everybody asks about palettes, so I'm going to ask it. If you guys, are you cool with asking these couple of questions? Then we'll give Shane a chance to kind of talk about their product a little bit. Is that cool with you, Joe Mike?
Yeah. I was watching the questions spool up over here, and I was nerding out, so I apologize.
No, that's fine. I was letting you go and just keeping a Google Keep list of questions as they came up.
Good man. I was hoping you were doing that. Okay, yeah. Let's hey,
I got to have some kind of responsibility with this stream, right? Okay. Question number 1, and I'm going to ask these in the order that I saw them and copied them down. From Ron, the Happy Extruder. Mosaic, why is the current warranty only 3 months and 15,000 splices when the original pallet received 12 months and 50,000 splices?
Warranty. Good question. So part of releasing this product was releasing 2 different products. So we didn't really get into that yet, but we have Palette 2 and Palette 2 Pro because we were trying to listen to what our customers wanted. And we saw that there's a lot of people saying, I need this to be as affordable as possible to make it accessible to me. I'm not using this for my business. I'm using this at home or in a school. And then there were a lot of people saying exact opposite. I can't believe this is only $800. I'm using this in a professional setting. I need this up 100% of the time. That's all that matters. And so that's why we made the decision to break the product into Palette 2 for hobbyists and education, and Palette 2 Pro for professionals. Part of being able to bring the price to where it is right now at $499 pre-sale for Palette 2 was going to an industry standard warranty. We looked across the industry at what 3D printer companies are doing, and that is what the Palette 2 warranty is right now. One thing I will say is that we always stand behind our customers. You will not find an example of a customer who said, I need something, and we said your warranty is gone, so we won't help you. That's really important to us, although from a liability standpoint, on paper, it's important that we do control what we call the downside and sort of the risk there. So we essentially brought the warranty to an industry standard, and then for the Palette 2 Pro, because those people said they are willing to pay more for something extra, we upped it to 12 months. Does that answer the question?
I think that answered it great. And I mean, it makes sense. Everything we purchase, warranty is factored into that. So, I mean, the price you pay also pays for the potential warranty that you're going to have to face, that the company's going to have to possibly eat the cost of. So I think that makes sense, and I think you answered that really well.
Yeah, Ron just said yeah, so he's cool with it.
Okay, thanks, Ron.
Yeah, unfortunately with the streams, I'm not sure how much Mitch and Shane, you guys are familiar with it. There's a bit of a delay between us talking and the chat actually seeing us, and then us seeing their chat message. So
it's not too bad tonight, though.
Yeah, I have it set to whatever the quickest setting is, so we shouldn't be on much of a delay.
Okay.
Next question. Filament Frenzy asked, what was the biggest change from palette to, or what was the biggest change that the team wanted to make between Palette Plus and Palette 2? and why? That was from, I don't know if I said it, from Filament Frenzy, from Tom.
Okay, that's an incredibly hard question to answer because there are so many changes. I'm going to choose the one that I've noticed that I'd say 90% of people that I've spoken to in the past few weeks about Palette 2 have brought up. So sort of taking other people's feedback on this.
No magnet.
It's bringing the buffer. So with Palette Plus, we had this sensor outside of, yeah, exactly. Sorry, I didn't hear you said it, just clicked in. We had this magnet and sensor outside of the product. And that's the sensor that read the filament going into the printer. And that's how Palette Plus kept up with the printer. In Palette 2, the engineers found a way to actually build that into the system. So now it's as simple as it could possibly be. You just put Palette 2 beside your printer. The tube coming out of it just goes to your extruder. It's not a Bowden tube. It's just a guide tube for the filament. And you're absolutely ready to go. There's no more Velcroing a sensor to your printer, coordinating the position of everything perfectly so that it moves smoothly. When you look at a Palette 2, whether it be in a time lapse or if you have one in front of you, you're gonna have that aha moment of that makes so much more sense. And so we're really, really proud of that change.
Yeah, the removal of the magnet is probably one of my favorite things because I've got that palette on a metal shelf, and every now and then that freaking magnet clicks on the shelf. I've put all kinds of stuff down to prevent that. But yeah, when I saw that it was all internal, that the buffer was an internal loop, and the scroll wheel was right at the outflow or the output, that was great. So well done on your engineering side.
Thank you. If I can jump in with one more, my personal favorite, it would be the full color touchscreen. And not because it's, glamorous to have the color touchscreen, but because something that we don't really talk about much because there's kind of too much to talk about is that a lot of people use multicolor printing for, controlled multicolor printing. So the classic gear toy where, one of the gears is red, one's blue, and the outside's black. But there's a lot of other really cool kind of funky things you can do, like this we call the gradient mode, where this is just a regular single color G-code, and we put Palette 2 into gradient mode, and what it does is it changes up the amount of black and white that it's putting out, so the pieces start off longer for white, and in the end get shorter. That's something that you used to need to plan for. You need to take your G-code, put it into Chroma, make a file, get ready to go. Now with Palette 2 and Palette 2 Pro, right on the screen, you can just create a gradient mode. It's really simple. You can also do a random mode where it'll do like 10 centimeters of green, 10 centimeters of red. You can do a repeatable pattern, all those things. And so we've been getting a lot of feedback from teachers in schools where if they want a grade 3 student to engage with Palette 2 and have more fun with printing and do it in color, they might not want to download Canvas and slice stuff up yet. But they can take any print that's been downloaded that's already on the printer and turn it into a multicolor print in that way because of that color touchscreen.
Cool. That's a pretty cool feature. A follow-up question with getting rid of the encoder wheel. I guess that's the name for it. Sorry if I'm wrong. So with that being built into the unit now, and no longer, that was the critical distance, correct, between the printer and the encoder to measure what point it was at. Now you've gotten rid of that, and I've heard it said that the distance doesn't matter. Obviously, over a certain distance, running through PTFE tube or whatever, you're going to create some friction and have some drag on it if you go too long.
Yeah.
Have you guys experimented with what's the limitation between the palette and the printer?
Yeah. So I've seen it said online many times, the distance doesn't matter. In all fairness, that's an oversimplification. That's not true. The distance certainly matters. But to your question about resistance and challenges there, first of all, splices. So when filaments are attached together, we call it a splice. Splices coming out of Palette 2 with the new solid state splicer are so strong that that's not a problem. They're not going to break. And in terms of friction, our biggest printer that we're partnering with, so we're partnering with a bunch of different companies. One is G-Create. G-Create's printer is humongous. And that tube, I believe, is over 1 meter. If you want the tube to be able to go up to the top corner of their gantry, that prints just as well as when someone uses a Palette 2 on, name a Prusa or something like that, where you're using the smallest tube. Exact same performance. So that isn't a big factor. I think putting the buffer inside Palette 2 versus having it outside, it's really just a different implementation of a similar solution. The new one is just much cleaner and easier to set up.
Right. So basically, your limitation would be the same limitation as you would have with your extruder. If your extruder can pull on it and you have it, like what I was kind of thinking of with that is like the rep box. It's designed to go on the wall. Ideally, you'd have the pallet right below it, filament feeding right into the from the rep box to the pallet. But then one of the thoughts that I have is once I get my rep box, I actually plan on having my rep box feed all my printers. I've got some over here and some behind me. So I'm actually going to do some routing with PTFE tube to guide it.
So that's like a hamster cage of filament.
Yeah.
The tubes will have to be labeled which printer they go to. So yeah, that's the reason I wanted to follow up with that question. And I'm sure some people are wondering about it depending on their setup.
Yes.
Real quick, Matt, I do want to show this real quick because I do with the way that the current palette operates, I actually have 4 cameras that I monitor the printer that the palette is on because of all the potential points of failure that were on the original palette. Let me click onto this thing real quick. That's not okay. So like here's the normal print view that's actually being ported in from my Pi. I'm doing more Catan tiles, but I've also got a view of the scroll wheel, nice up and close, so I know that filament is, at the front and the back. And then I've got what I call the Overwatch view here, which is an overview just so I can see if there's any breakage inside of this tube, or if there's filament that stopped on the encoder wheel. But you can get a good idea from this picture. Let me blow this up a bit, of how this setup works currently. So there's the encoder wheel that you're talking about, Matt. This actually feeds back over to the pallet, and that is the known distance that Mitch is talking about here. So from the pallet to there is the known distance, and then from there out, the encoder wheel then knows how much is being fed. And basically this part here is now integrated into the printer, and what you're not seeing on this other end is a magnet that is part of the buffer system that allows the filament to kind of grow as it's being spliced while the extruder is doing its retractions and extruding. So this whole system right here is pretty daggum long. Like I said, it's taking up a whole shelf. So that's one of the cool things about the 2 is the fact that this guy being external has gone away. And this, if you needed it to be, could be a straight tube and with nothing in between. So I just wanted to show that. So Matthew, back to you, sir.
Okay, so that was Filament Frenzy. Practical printing. Chris would like to know, can the P2s, pallet 2s, be used upside down, filament inlet at the top? And if so, will the screen rotate?
Ooh, okay. Pallet 2, from what I understand, so there's 3 orientations it comes in. It comes on a stand, it can go flat, and it can be mounted to a wall. We actually have not done testing with mounting it upside down, although we did build a securing screw so that if you use the wall mount, you can actually put a bolt through the back so that it can't slide off. I could actually, if you'd like, do some testing and get back to you. I do believe that that would hold it upside down. In terms of the screen being inverted, we've been asked that a bunch with our old screen, the 4x16 blue pixelated screen. That one, it wasn't possible to do. With this one, it might be possible. But as always, don't want to commit to something unless I know it's fully true. So I can get back to you on that. I know it's definitely not a feature that's planned for launch or that is even in the roadmap. But if that's something that we're seeing that people want, and I'll sort of tell the team about it, then we could look into it. Would be curious to know what that setup would look like and why you'd want to do it. But yeah, I think that could be pretty cool.
Because it's Chris.
I think the reason for that question is products like the rep box. In the ideal situation, I'm picturing a rep box here, the pallet here, so the filament's coming down into the top as opposed to going up and out, which would make sense. And what size is the touchscreen? What's the dimension of it?
Ooh, that is a great question. I should know that. You know what? I can pull that up while we're talking.
Okay. The question I was going to have is, I could actually see where some people may want to go sideways with it too, so that it's mounted on the wall, filament coming in this side and coming out. Especially like in my case, if and when more so I get a pallet too, I'm actually kind of thinking maybe a sideways mount, so the tube wraps around my office wall. I was curious if it's a square screen, square dimensionally.
It's rectangular.
Firmware settings or something, you can set your orientation of the screen or something like that. While you're looking that up, do you want me to go ahead and move on to the next question, Mitch? Or
sure. Actually, you know, it just came up right here. I'm pulling up the official Canvas Hub spec sheet. It is a 3.2-inch color touchscreen.
3.2.
And it is rectangular. It's not an actual square.
Yep.
So it's 3.2 inches diagonally.
Yeah, it's 240 by 320 pixels, so it is a rectangle, yes.
Can I watch movies on it?
Potentially, it could go flip over 180 if that's possible. If I'm thinking probably, you know, like if the memory and everything allows for an extra interface to be rotated or something, probably is the biggest limitation, if any. Okay. I'll save mine for the last one. David Randolph from Printed Solid wanted to know about mechanical bond results between multiple materials. So going PLA to ABS to PETG. That's one of the things, like I know Printed Solid's really big on recommending trying polyalchemy as a support material for PLA because it doesn't stick to PLA very well. What kind of issues or experimentation have you guys seen or done with that?
Yeah. So what I think he's referring to is mechanical bond. So the nature of the way that palette technology works is that we actually splice together. And I apologize, I'm home right now. I don't have any splices on me, which is a rarity. But we actually splice together the filaments. We used to do it using more of a chemical bond from a material science perspective. One material was chemically bonding to the other. Now what we do is we use a mechanical bond. So we heat one of the materials, and then we plunge another one into it, and it forms almost a ball and socket joint so that it's holding it. And if you do it with clear filament, you can actually see the one material going over the other one. What that does is, at this scale, it creates a really, really robust and ductile bond so that even if you try and break that splice on a 1.75 millimeter filament, you will not break it. You will break the filament around the splice, not the actual splice. That's how strong it can be. Not only when you're using the same material like PTG and PTG, or when you're using fundamentally different materials. So PTG and PLA, or I think more excitingly, what I hope we can help more people do would be flexible and rigid or soluble and rigid. Yeah, so that mechanical bonding, which happens in the solid state Splice Core and Splice Core Pro of the Palette 2 and Palette 2 Pro, means that multi-material can happen more reliably because it's creating that mechanical bond.
I think he may have been referring as far as the printed product.
Okay.
Answering that, I realized that probably is what he's thinking of. So, like
the printed product, that part of it gets purged, does it not?
Or is he talking about the actual print, like the design?
Yeah, so like you've got the band there. So let's say you're doing TPU and PLA, the printed product.
Yes. Okay, incredible question. Yeah, so here's an example of my Apple Watch band, which was printed recently. So the red is a TPU, and then the white is, I believe, a white TPU. But this white over here, the clasp, that's a rigid PLA. Those don't stick together. And like he suggested, and I'm a huge fan of, you can use that as a support material because one will peel off the other when the print finishes, leaving a really nice finish. But in our case, we needed the white to stay in the red. So what we did is we designed a captive geometry. So if you were to watch this print, it would have gone red, a pretty big section of white, and then red would have gone over that, only leaving this upper part that comes in so that the white is captured inside the red mechanically so you can't pull it out. And by doing so and printing it in the right orientation, it forms a really, really solid geometry. So I've been wearing this for a really long time now. The clasp works really well, snaps in and can come off easily. And that wouldn't be really possible if this watch band was all rigid or all TPU. But because of the multi-material and because of that captive geometry, we can solve that problem.
Now,
if you look at the traditional Apple Watch band anyway, I mean, it's not like they're doing, you know, they use captive technology as well with the metal. So, I mean, it's pretty much the same thing. I mean, yeah.
Yes. Yeah, and I could geek out about this forever, but exactly what you just said, it's the same thing. that's the sort of holy grail of where additive manufacturing can go, is to be able to make the same thing, the things that people buy and wear and use. And I think that multicolor was a huge step, because look at our t-shirts, look at the things we wear, they're branded. We communicate things with color. But when it comes to function, it's completely underexplored. And as simple as an Apple Watch band is, it's a good example of something that we couldn't do in additive easily, but now we can, which is exciting.
And actually, Dave did answer. You answered the question with your first answer, but thanks for the second one. I think that actually is both ways a really good question, because you're talking multi-material. So the next question was from NAC 3D Designs. Will we be able to set how deep the color goes into the part? So when preparing for multicolor.
Oh, the coloring. That was one interesting concept that I was wondering as well. Is can you, I guess it'd be penetration depth of when you're actually painting a solid part. Is that right, Matt?
Yeah, I think that's what he's referring to, because before you would model it in, you'd have your different pieces and you'd set your thickness. If you're using the painting feature, in theory, that would just be surfaced. The surface would be that color, but I guess, yeah, you'd want to be able to set that in a little bit, especially in multi-material.
And especially with lighter colors over darker.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, no, certainly. So like you said, in theory, it would be color. That's the way most of the things we've ever held are. The surface is colored with a screen print or something like that. In fused filament fabrication, 3D printing, that is absolutely not the way it works. You need a depth. On a printer with a 0.4 nozzle, a 2 millimeter depth is a pretty good sweet spot. It's enough that you get nice flow from the nozzle and you can get from some really clean surfaces. The answer is yes, 100%. That is inherent to the way that we've built the coloring. It's coupled with the slicing. So without getting too deep into it, we are able to, in a really, really clean way, define a depth into the part, not only when it comes to thinking about the walls going in, but when you think about top surfaces, making sure that you'll have a really uniform color, because like you just brought up, some materials aren't fully opaque. And so to have a part look really clean, you would want to make sure that the depth remains reasonably constant. And yeah, so that's going to be done behind the scenes with canvas color. Whereas right now, a lot of the models that people print have different STLs, where the designer of those STLs hopefully took that into account and made sure that the thickness was at least 2 to 3 millimeters in every orientation.
Cool. And then final question, and then we'll give Shane from Prusa a chance to talk about the MMU.
Yeah.
I think this is going to be a really long stream, or else maybe a multi-part stream.
Hey, whatever it takes.
But that actually worked out pretty great. It gave Mitch about an hour. So last question that I had for Mitch, the question that I've seen everybody ask since the palette, the original palette came out, multiple palettes connected to each other. And with a side note to that, I don't know if you saw it today or not, Mitch, but I'm really tempted to start a 30 days of begging Mosaic to send NAC 3D Designs a second palette to go with his first one, just because he's doing some incredible stuff with the polyalchemy. So yeah, everybody always asks, you see it everywhere, multiple palettes hooked together rather than to a dual extrusion printer, but actually back-to-back piggybacking them. Have you guys played with that idea or have any plans that you can talk about for that?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. A really fun concept. If you've seen that a bunch of times, you can imagine the number of inquiries we get about it. I think it's such a fun idea, having 4 go into 4, allowing 16 different materials or colors. 2 answers to this question. One is the fun side of that, and second would be like the down to business. Can we actually make that work one day? The fun side of it, I think we got to do it pretty soon. Admittedly, we tried it maybe a year ago. We were using it was just a bad, it was kind of like what could go wrong went wrong. We were using a printer that was all like gunked up because it was a new printer. It wasn't working very well. We were using a palette that came back from a customer. We didn't see that we needed to repair something. So we got pretty far into it, but the system became humongous. 16 filaments going into 4 palettes, going into 1 palette. So that was not a success. With palette 2 and the much smaller form factor, I think that we could do it a lot more easily. And maybe actually when we jump over to Shane, I'll set a calendar reminder for maybe a month from now when we ship products and we have a little more downtime. maybe we could follow up and do a fun video. That's the fun side. So, you know, imagine doing something like this. Each layer of white there could have actually had 4, you know, micro gradients within it or something.
Yeah,
but
insanely long print times, though.
yes, especially if we were doing 16 colors in each layer.
Yeah.
But if we wanted to talk about something, you know, that truly did have that, so you know, a print that had 16 materials, maybe, you know, 8 different flexible colors, a soluble, tons of different rigids, electrically conductive, that would require a substantially higher level of sophistication, because we would be calibrating the delivery of each different splice to the master palette, and then, you know, calibrating the delivery of each of those new splices to the printer. And that would take a lot of work. And I think we'd need a really strong justification to have a few engineers work on that for maybe a few months. So much more likely, if we saw strong demand from our customers saying we want more than 4 colors, then we could probably work on that. But something really, really surprising, and maybe what I'll end off on here for this segment to explain, is that we get asked by people who don't 3D print. They say, when are you going to make the full color one? When are you going to make it to 64 colors? And we say, to be honest, we actually never get asked about that, because people who are 3D printing, they know that practically 3D content that's 64 colors does not exist. And I think if you look at where the industry's at, most people printing single color, single material things, 3 or 4 colors is a humongous jump. So I think that's kind of surprising, but we really, really don't get asked often. Okay, that model's pretty sweet. That would be cool.
This is what NAC 3D did today. That spawned, like, this was done. Nothing is painted. It's all polyalchemy and protopasta filaments. Everything was done in separate pieces.
Okay.
And then put together, except for, I believe, the body was done with a dual extrusion and a filament swap for the hair.
Okay.
One of the extruders. So that's why I asked about the multi printers and everything. I really can't wait to see what he does once he actually has his palette 2 in hand.
Yeah,
and even more so with 2 of them.
100%. Yeah, whether it be 2 nozzle or something. So one thing he can do that I'm sure he'll mess around with is that on palette, actually, you can do a live filament swap. So in the menu, you can change the filament mid-print. So that's how, if you ever see people do 6 or 7 or 8 color palette prints, what they did is they used that live filament change mode. And if you do some clever things, you can plan, say you only have 4 colors in each layer, but at different parts in the print. So for a print like that, he could have probably done it, because I'm not seeing any layer that has more than 4 colors. But yeah, anyhow, this was really cool. This was our first live chat about Palette 2. I'm glad it was here. I'm not going anywhere anytime soon, but want to be fair, and looking forward to hearing from Shane as well. So,
indeed.
I want to add to that sorry.
Rich, when the heck did you get here?
Oh, surprise! Okay, I'm in here. Sorry about that.
Hey.
Hey, other Mitch. You're the better Mitch, though.
No.
Okay. I was just gonna say that if you get the E3D tool changer, and then each tool head has a Kraken on it, you can have 64 colors.
Wow. Let's not even. Okay.
Gotta make that happen.
We've hit the 1 hour mark. So traditionally, we would run through real quick and do, introductions. At this point, Mitch C., since you just hopped in, why don't you go ahead and just give a quick introduction of who you are, your channel, where people can find you, and then we'll go ahead and hop over to Shane and get what Prusa is working on here.
Okay, cool. Again, I really like this format of having one channel dedicated to Friday Night Hangouts. I think it's going to be a lot easier for people to watch. Anyway, I'm Mitch, Mitch 3D, or Mitch C. I don't work for Mosaic, but I did pre-order one, a palette too, so I'm excited about that.
Thank you, that's awesome.
Yeah. So I have done YouTube videos in the past, so my channel is Mitch 3D, and then I'm the Mitch 22 on Instagram and Twitter and other things. So I'm currently working with TPUs. I have a filament dryer that I followed Joe Mike's suggestion, and I've been trying to dry it out between each print, and I've gotten mixed results, right? So this is before I dried it out. This is right after I dried it. It made it look a little bit better, but then I just printed a wallet. It took 20 hours, and it has issues. So I don't know if it's the extrusion or the filament drying, but that's what I'm currently working with is with a Bowden setup on the Artemis with the Capricorn tube using Sane Smart TPU, trying to get that to work properly. So TPUs are really tricky. Anyway, so that's what I'm doing.
Hey, Joe Mike.
Hey, yeah.
Do you mind if I ask Mitch one more quick question? Because I'm sure this one will probably have a short answer to it.
Sure.
This has been one thing I've seen on Twitter, and Knack3D asked it again, and I think it's a valuable question to the conversation, just on the product side of things. The splice core from the Palette 2 versus the Palette 2 Pro. Can you, if you buy the original Palette 2, or sorry, not the original Palette 2, the Palette 2, can you later purchase the Palette 2 Pro core as an upgrade? Are they interchangeable?
Really, really good question. Okay, so for anyone who doesn't understand, super quick, the Splice Core Pro is exclusive to the Palette 2 Pro. It's an all-metal design. It can splice 20% faster, and therefore you can print faster. And it's kind of baked into my answer there is that the Splice Core Pro is using, it has a different PCB inside of it to handle the different nichrome that goes around the core of that tube there. Because of that, it is not compatible with the Palette 2. But it just so happens that because of the power requirement, the Palette 2 Splice Core is compatible with the Pro. Not that that makes much sense. I don't see why anyone would do that. But simple answer, no. The Pro is not compatible with the Palette 2. The Splice Core Pro must be used with the Palette 2 Pro. Ugh, lots of words.
Hi. And I did have one last quick question that was
Okay.
that it was in the chat, and it's something that I was kind of interested about as well. So, how many pre-orders have you guys sold already? Just out of curiosity.
While Mitch is asking that, go ahead and start posting questions for the MMU2, and I'll start grabbing them a while. If it's something that Shane answers when he's going over it, I'll take them out and then put in another question, but we'll try to keep it to like 6 or 7 again. So sorry, go ahead, Mitch.
No, all good. Unfortunately, I'm not able to say the exact number.
Roundabout, just like, because we all know our order numbers. Did it start at 0?
I don't even do that at Mosaic, to be honest. I don't know. I don't believe it started at exactly 0, but I can say that this pre-sale has been incredible for us. It's obvious that taking the time to listen to all of our past customers and bake it into something and to announce it when we were very close to shipping rather than, Kickstarter style like we did originally. You announce it and then you go to production. I think that's really, really paid off. It's been incredible to see how many people have pre-ordered this and the excitement. So there's going to be a lot of Palette 2s and Palette 2 Pros in the world, and that's going to make an even better community, which is great. I'm sorry I can't give you an exact answer right now. One thing I wanted to say, though, you mentioned that, and I know this has taken forever, and I'm glad. It's awesome. We kind of got carried away in it. You mentioned that typically we would then kind of give a quick sign-off. Given that this is getting pretty long, and I don't want to interrupt Shane, so I'm probably going to have to jump off in 15, 20 minutes. Can I take maybe 1 minute just to sort of say bye and just sort of say what's happening right now before we pass it over?
Yeah, absolutely. Go for it. Okay,
thank you. Yeah, I think the reason that I saw this tweet originally was because you were saying Multimaterial and you just saw the Palette 2 announcement. So for anyone who isn't aware, Mosaic just announced Palette 2 and Palette 2 Pro. So if you have a Robo 3D or a G-Create or a Maker Gear or Race 3D or Prusa or any of the 1.75 millimeter printers on the market, you already own one, you want to print in different colors or materials, then you can get a Palette 2 or Palette 2 Pro. The Palette 2 is $4.99 now. It's only going to be for another, I think, 20 days. And that upgrades your printer to print in color or with 4 different materials. And then Canvas is out. Majority of the features will and are and always will be free for Palette users. Things that have never been brought to market before, like coloring models, as well as this product called Canvas Hub, which connects your palette to your printer and actually brings your printer online. So if you have a printer that isn't connected to the internet, Canvas Hub brings it on. And like the Octoprint setup you were just showing, one day soon, hopefully we can have webcams in there as well, so you can have the complete monitoring solution built right there. So that's what I had to say. MosaicManufacturing.com is where you can learn everything about Palette 2, Palette 2 Pro. Reach out to us. We talk to hundreds of people a day. We feel it's our job to help the industry get to this point in multi-material, whether that's helping you figure out your solution or figure out how to use a Palette 2. We are there. So please reach out. You can reach out to me personally as well. I'm not on Twitter, but I'm always on the Mosaic Facebook page. And if you reach out to Mosaic, we can get connected. So thank you all for having me on here. I'm going to stick around for a while longer, but when I do jump off, I won't interrupt. So it was great to be on. Thank you. And this has been fun.
Yeah, thank you so much for hopping on and taking the time to chat with us and to answer our ridiculous questions, and to let us kind of geek out a little bit over the announcement. So yeah, whenever you need to go, feel free to just kind of, float off with the wind.
Yeah. Thanks for joining, Mitch, and you and Shane both. You guys are welcome back on the stream anytime you want. If you get in touch with me or Joe Mike, we can get you hooked up with how to kind of keep up with the stream.
Thank you. I appreciate it, and I'd love to come back. So this is awesome. Thanks, guys.
Bye, Mitch.
Okay,
Bye,
so
Mitch.
segueing from the Palette ecosystem and into the Prusa ecosystem. So we heard Mitch talk a little bit how Palette is a company that is not making a 3D printer, but is making a product for a 3D printer. And now we are segueing into a company that's primarily a 3D printer manufacturer and retailer that is coming out with another offering in the multicolor world as it is. So we're going to be looking at the world of multicolor printing as it applies to Prusa. And real quick, I want to kind of look at where Prusa has been, and then we can kind of go into where Prusa is going. So let me hop in here. So the original multi-material kit for the MK2 was this guy right here. And as you can see, it used 4 stepper motors, and it went into this, I don't know what you'd call it, a quadplexer that then fed into the hot end. And it was a Bowden setup at this point. So you basically removed the extruder off of the hot end assembly and moved it up onto the top. And then you had 4 Bowden tubes that went into a quadplexer. And what it would do would actually pull the material out of the path of the next material and then feed the next material in. So this is the old version of the MK2, MK2S multi-material upgrade. Now let's kind of take a look at where we're going. So not too far back, around the time Murph came around, Prusa was saying, hey, we've got a multi-material 2.0 coming out for the MK3. And here is a quick little picture of a picture that was taken at Murph of the unit. I don't know how much of this is actually still part of it, because this unit was not operational at Murph. It was just there to show the concept of how this unit was operating. One thing that we can point out, obviously, is we've gone from 4 materials up to 5 materials. And the mechanism at which materials are changed is quite interesting on this unit. A lot of engineering went into this unit. And another cool thing is that it eliminated the need for 4 tubes to go into the hot end, and now we only have 1 single tube going into the hot end once again. So with this being the new setup, and I do believe, and I'll let Shane kind of touch on this, but I believe this is only compatible with the MK3, the Prusa MK3. So you would have to have an MK3 in order to take advantage of this particular upgrade. But let's face it, I mean, the MK3 is an incredibly popular printer. I've got one next to me right now. I know several others who have MK3s either right now or on order. Mr. Richard Murray on this stream, he has an MK3 coming. So it's an incredibly popular brand and an incredibly popular printer. So having this unit to do multicolor printing, it's going to change how the MK3, how we interact with it. So not only can we have a reliable, great printer, but now we can have a reliable, great printer that does up to 5 colors or multi-materials. So Shane, are you with us?
Oops. Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Thank you. And thank you very much for that wonderful introduction. That was great. So as Joe Mike said, we first came out with the MMU1, and that was released back the weekend of Bay Area Maker Faire back in 2017. Okay. And so about 14, 15 months later, we're just about ready to release the Multimaterial 2. As mentioned, we had not a working unit, but to show the mechanics and how it moved and everything else at Murph. I always get the two mixed up. Sorry. At Midwest Rap Festival 2018, we had it there to show it. And actually, from that photo, thank you, we've actually improved upon that now. The fun part, we added a physical filament sensor. So that way, if the filament runs out or if there's a jam, the system will detect that, stop, and it will alert you. Whereas before with the MMU1, it would just keep on going. You set a print up to go in the middle of the night. God forbid, if you had a clog, you come down, in the morning and it's printing air. This will actually stop, pause. It will turn off the hot end and keep the bed warm. So it will still keep the print ready to go. And then if it's a clog or if it's something else, it's a lot easier to fix now, because right where the person's finger is, behind that's the tumbler for the selector. You just open that up and you can just easily access the filament there. And that's just one of the options that we added, because ever since MMU1, we've been listening to everyone as far as what they had to say, as far as, options that they would like. And, just to really push our design team to the limit. I mean, every bit of feedback that we've gotten was submitted, and we went over it and to see what was actually possible or not. And as you mentioned, it wasn't too sure if the MMU2 if it's just a proprietary setup for us. It's not. It's open sourced. All right. Joseph is all about keeping everything open sourced. Once the MMU2 starts to ship, all the files, the STL files, the diagrams for the board, everything will be made available to the public. Right. So if you have a different printer, it could be possible to add it to another one. But as far as my job and tech support, if someone wants to do that, it's something that we normally would not support. But since the community is so incredible and just so passionate, I'm sure, give it 3-4 months, someone will sit there and rewrite the firmware, which is open source, and, make it compatible with something else. When we initially designed the MMU1 and MMU2, we used our printers for the baseline, for the core of it and everything else. We know what will work with it, right? So we know, this will work with our board for sure, and the motors, and everything's timed out. So, but again, it's all open sourced, right? And also, it's not just improving on the actual hardware, but the software itself, right? We have Slicer, which is, open source slicing program. We have our own version of it, which is the Prusa edition. And if you have an MMU2 or an MMU1, you can still benefit from these options. People wanted to do a wipe into infill. So to try to cut down on the waste tower, that's been added. And we also added the option there where you can add objects to that and use those objects as a white tower, right? So I was doing a little bit of a thing, and I did a quick Marvin 2-color print, but I set a few other Marvins off in the background and used those as part of the white tower. And I actually combined blue and silver, and I got this really unique color, and I thought it was great, And over time, we're always working on the software and the hardware and everything else, and to do whatever we can do to eliminate that, to cut down as much as the waste material as possible, and to just try to do it so you're not going through so much material. A lot of the YouTubers made the reviews on the MMU1, and they mentioned the wipe tower and everything else, and we really took that into consideration, and Joe really wanted to find ways to help cut that down. So you're using, you're wiping material off and on, and at least you can use that material into another object. And like I said, even that's open source, so you can sit there and play around with it. We don't limit people. We just, a lot of our inspiration comes from our users, from tweaks they did with the MMU1 to designers who make incredible stuff. Like for example, Chaos Cortec. I love his designs that he makes with the MMU printing. That stuff just blows me away. We have a volunteer on Thingiverse who can sit there and just take a model, modify it, and next thing you know, you have a brand new multi-material print. Now, for the MME2, you don't necessarily have to have an MK3. If you have an MK2 or a 2S, if you get the upgrade to a 2.5, you can use the MMU2 on either one of those printers. So it would be an MK 2.5 or an MK3. And with those printers, you also get the option of, you have the runout sensor built into the MMU2 and also the one built onto the printer. And those will be incorporated enough where, even if it clears the sensor from the MMU2, but it's blocked somehow in the hot end, it will still tell you, so you're gonna have two filament sensors working hand in hand to try to, make sure that it's just constantly working right. And if there's a problem, it will stop and let you know. And then also with, or at least with the MK3, you have the power panic. So if the power gets cut off in the middle of an MMU multi-material print, you're all set. Turn it back on. It will remember where it left off and continue from there. Let's see. So I took a few little notes while listening to Mitch. Yeah, no problem. Let's see. Yep. And with the MMU2, as well as with any of our products, the warranty covers, the basic warranty covers for any failures on the electronics and mechanics for 1 year, and then it's a lifetime of support. Once that warranty expires, we don't tell people, "Oh, sorry, you need to go away." No, we still work with people. I still work with people having MK1. I'm not too good with it, but we still offer a lot of support, and we still like to do as much as we can. And yep, even right there, you have a multi-material post processor there. When we first started this and everything else, you had to use, you would slice up the code and then you put it into the post processor and it's do its thing. And it wasn't the easiest thing to work on. But then we got to our programmers and we had them build that into our version of Slicer. So it's just basically now it's just a one-shot deal where, you just select the multi-material. It gives you the options. You select which parts are assigned to which material, and off it goes. It does it all for you.
Cool. So I'm very curious about, a lot of things, but so the way that you guys are implementing the 2.0 versus the original one seems to be night and day different. I mean, we've got pretty much the same concept, multi-materials, multicolors going into a single hot end, but it looks like, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it looks like that you guys have gone away from the Bowden setup of the original MMU, and have gone back to direct drive for the new one. So basically the new MMU just feeds the filament to the extruder that's still on the hot end, and it still has direct control. Is that correct?
Yes, that is absolutely correct. With the MMU1, you had that quad splitter. So, you have filament being fed in and out of that, hundreds of times during a print, and it had to be precise every single time. So we heard how people were frustrated with it, trying to get it to work right and everything else. So then this design came around in the beginning of this year, and we took the upgrade that we were going to do with the, to have the MMU1 work on an MK3. We came across this design and we just threw the old one out and just went with this, just because it's a lot simpler and easier to work with. We're always trying to make everything where over time, we try to make things where it's as easy as possible to pick up and learn. And then over time, you build that experience, and then you can, continue and move forward, and then, jump into MMU, multi-material printing, and, start making your own designs. Or if you see something on the unit itself and you're like, well, you know what? I don't want this mounted up on top. I want it somewhere else. I'm going to build an enclosure. I'm going to do whatever you'd like to do. It's all open source. It's there for everyone, to do whatever you want with it. And then we want to be amazed to see what people come up with. I love it going to shows. Everyone comes up and they show us these things. It's like, wow. For me, it's not work. It's me going there and just interacting and just having a blast with people and seeing all the amazing things people make with our stuff.
I'm trying to locate the post where you guys showed.
It's the February one. One second. I think it's on page 2.
Yeah, it's on page 2 of the.
Hey, Jeremy, while you're looking for that, do you want to lock on your screen so you can show your screen, since Shane is just audio only tonight?
Sorry.
I thought I was locking my screen.
Yeah.
Nah, I was trying to log in. I was going to do it from the Friday night account, but it's not.
Am I locked now?
Somebody else talk once.
Okay, well, what has me quite excited is being able to use your infill or a second object for your wipe, because what's always bothered me is having that big block of wasted material at the end of a color print. So that's the features that have me quite excited about what you're working towards. What I'm wondering is how does this tie in with Slicer for actually doing the color control?
Well, it's worked in, sorry, excuse me. It's all software driven with that. And it just it's added into it where you click into your object. You're in Slicer and you'll click into it normally how you would with assigning the different materials to different parts. But if you would scroll down, there's 2 new options in there where it's wipe into infill, which where you can select your multi-material print. And then if you have another object in there, you would click on wipe into object. So it's all software driven with that. And it's not limited just to the MMU2, but also it's available to use on the Multimaterial 1. Both machines will do that now.
Oh, okay. As I said, in the world, if you're looking at the ecology out there, there's a lot of concern about plastics. And here we are, we're making a lot more. So whatever we can do to reduce the use. That, this was a make or break decision for me here that, yes, now with this, now I know I can cut down the waste. Yeah, I can move forward with this type of product.
Yep. We are trying to work it out where we can take as much material out of the waste tower itself and put it to other use. Now, depending upon the size of the object, how many layer changes, the infill and everything else, you still have some of the white tower there. We're always working on to reduce the actual amount of it and actually turn it into something useful.
Right. Now, one concern we've had in the past is when you're dealing with multi-materials, working with the need for different nozzle temperatures, hot end temperatures, if that's still there. That hasn't been resolved, correct?
Right now, it is not implemented. Where I remember 3D Maker Noob did a review, and it was absolutely great on that one. Where he showed it where he was trying to mix colors, and the nozzle wouldn't stop moving in order for it to change temperatures. The developers are aware of that. They're just trying to see just how possible it is to do that, and because in order for that to happen, it's going to have to sit there, print with one material, wipe off the on the unload, wait for the temperature change, and then go back to loading the new one, and then constantly going back and forth. It is something they are looking at, but for those of you who are interested, it will increase the print time. That's the only thing about it. But they are working on it.
Now, how is the print time with this new format?
It really depends upon different various settings and everything else. I mean, as far like what I'm doing for them now is like I'll run test prints for them and everything. So it really depends upon exactly what it is. For right now, it's let's say a 3-inch tall object with 4 colors is 9 hours, right? But as mentioned before, with multi-material printing, if you sit there and you really want to get into it and everything else, and the best thing to do is, instead of like printing just one object, is to try to print as much, or try to fill up that bed as much as possible with all different objects with the same types of materials. So you're really not wasting as much filament if you're printing about one at a time. It does take longer, but so it is kind of a trade-off on that one.
All right.
All right. Well, I think that was a pretty good overview of the MMU2 for Prusa. I want to get us into some questions that the community had. Matt, do you have questions that you found? Or I know one that just came up, and it's one that I was kind of interested in as well. But I was thinking about using the MK3 with the MMU2, since I mean, and they're married to each other, and they would work perfectly with each other. So one thing that I kind of share with Richard is the waste aspect. So I'm not a huge fan of the purge block that comes off of a multicolor print. I understand the necessity for it, but at the same time, since I forgot how. Okay, yeah. Would the white tower on the MM2 be smaller than, say, the palette 2 due to one retracting the filament and the other splicing? So since you are retracting the filament out of the hot end and then putting a new filament in, is the filament, is your guys' purge tower somewhat smaller than, say, a palette produced print?
Honestly, I would have to, me personally, and I'm sorry to Mitch, I don't have personal hands-on experience with the palette. There are other people who do have that, and unfortunately, I would need to double check with them on that, and just to see what the comparison would be to the actual purge volume, where it is. With our software, you can change it, from the default, so you can either use more or less of it depending upon what you're printing with.
So you're talking about your basically your transition grace period.
Yes, how many times the nozzle needs to go back and forth to wipe itself off during loading and unloading. Okay. There's an option in there now where you can set for each extruder, let's say, or each material. You can change for all 5 of them on the MMU2 and all 4 on the MMU1. You can change those volumes now to suit your needs. So before, with the MMU1, it was one setting for all 4. So if you had 3 materials that wouldn't they would never really bleed together, but you had one there that would. You had to increase all of those settings so it would carry across all four. Now with the improvements in Slicer, you can set each material for a different volume if needed. So that will help cut that down.
That's very cool. I do like the idea of having the four additional, or the four original filament paths, and then having the fifth one because of, basically TPE. So having the ability to have the full 4-color and then also a dissolvable support material and being able to load that into the fifth, that's one of the things that I was kind of looking at the MMU and going, oh, that would be really nice to be able to do my 4-color printing and have soluble support material as well. So, okay, Matt, questions?
Yeah. Okay, so the first one, we did have one from Ron, but Shane did such a good job with his introduction to the MMU2 that he already answered that. Filament Frenzy wants to know, Shane, what do you think the biggest change is between the MMU1 versus the MMU2? Like, what's the one feature that you feel is the biggest change? I'm thinking probably aside from the fact that you're going from 4 to now 5 materials.
One of the bigger changes that I absolutely love is going away from that quad splitter. Because you could have that thing perfectly lined up. Just one little thing, one little knock of the table or whatever it was, and the whole thing is gone. Now it's a lot simpler. And then also the added feature of the filament runout. So if there's a clog, it will stop the print and it will allow you to easily clear it out, where you just, on that tumbler, you just open that up and you can just clear the clog. Where before with MMU1, you'd have to sit there, release the Bowden tubes, open up the quad splitter and really try to get that clog out of there. So those would probably be the two biggest things, would be the removal of the quad splitter and the filament sensor.
And sorry, quick question. So the filament sensor that's up on the MMU, is it also using the same technology? So basically the laser filament sensor, or is it, you said earlier that it was a physical filament sensor?
Yes, it is. It's well, for those of you who have seen the updated videos, you can kind of figure out what it is. It's actually it's a pin to probe, and we've done something with it where it's the probe will there'll be a type of a physical switch on there. So when the filament goes in there, it makes contact with the sensor, and if it's if it runs out or if it's still there when the machine knows it shouldn't be, it will stop. It will park the hot end off to the side, and it will allow you to clear it.
Huh, that's kind of cool. I didn't know that the Pinda can be modified in that way. Okay, so we had Ross join us. So Ross, did you have a question? And before that, did you want to go ahead and do a quick intro?
Yeah. So I'm Ross from the YouTube channel Geared On For What. I build gearboxes, weird robotics, all that kind of stuff.
The erection robot, as I like to call that one.
He's talking about a flexible skin for it now, Joe Mike.
I might as well run this because I had a quick little demo set up for YouTube.
And that's something from my nightmares.
I could see why it would be from nightmares. But anyways, I had a question of what kind of retraction times are we looking at for that MMU2 for change, for retracting the existing filament and then putting the new one in the Bowden tube?
Honestly, I have not sat there and timed that out. As far as for myself, my primary role is dealing with end users, with customers and everything else. So my role as far as the testing goes and is to present my findings as I believe the end user would see it. As far as the technical stuff goes, I'm honestly not that well versed in it, but give me time and I will try to find that answer, even if I have to sit there with a stopwatch myself.
Yeah, I know. So with my Delta, I did a similar setup. Actually, you guys announced the MMU1 right after I got my just my dual Y with 2 extruders, single nozzle working, which is similar, not exactly near close to how the MMU1 works, but similar kind of concept. And retraction was the biggest thing. I had like 120 millimeter retraction. You guys are retracting even further than that with that. Mm-hmm. And that was such a fine thing to just finesse to get it just right, that you didn't end up with a long string that now jammed up the other one when it went into the Y. And it was a finicky setup. Now, I unfortunately don't have any experience with the MMU1. But yeah, that was the biggest thing is like, if you could speed that retraction up, it was great because it would decrease the added time to your print job. But at the same time, you now stretched your filament as it pulled out. Lots of issues there. So I'd be curious about that. And I actually had that down as one of my questions for you as we were going through these. So thanks for answering that. Thanks for asking it.
You're also risking, the higher retraction speeds. You're also, risking slippage or coming out of calibration. So I would imagine it'd be something that you want to find that sweet spot for it, where it's not unbearingly slow, but it's fast enough and still slow enough to where it doesn't, pull the unit out of calibration. But with the setup that they have going on now, it looks like that's not really an issue at this point, because they just pull the filament completely back and then put the new filament in. So.
Right. All right. Next question is from NAC 3D Designs. As it appears to be much easier to scale up to more filaments, are there plans to make add-on modules to make it 6, 8, 10, etc. filaments or materials?
Well, for right now, they are working on just getting the final product into production and get it out to the customers. As that was mentioned, that's always been asked before, especially with the MMU1. Could you add more to it? In theory, yes. As far as if they have plans for it, possibly. Like I said before, the developers are always listening to feedback, and if it's something that they can really do, and if there's a high enough demand for it, then they'll put the resources into that. As far as our guys go, our developers, I don't know if they know the word fail. They always, even if they create something and something's not working right afterwards, they're there all the time, always improving
it. I like that you made that comment, because that is one of the things. Prusa has been there from the start to push the technology further. Mm-hmm. So the fact that the developers and engineers don't know the meaning of the word fail, that's just, when I think of Prusa, that's one of the things that always comes to mind is, you guys are always pushing to do the next thing. So that's kind of cool that you made that comment.
And I got the picture of the MMU2 up, and I think one of the things that me and my buddy Anthony were talking about when we were on our drive home from Murph was the like you were talking about, Matt, the possible expandability of this particular system. Because right now you've got the hobbed gears down on a single axis, and then you've got these bearings which are on a rotating drum, which makes the contact, basically presses the filament down onto the hobbed gear, which makes the contact to feed or retract the filament. But it looks like you guys aren't using very much space on this drum at the moment, so you could, in theory, expand this out to fill the whole drum and however many that ends up being using these particular diameter bearings go to that many materials, expanding out by just adding more hob gears and lengthening the device. Is that pretty much correct?
Yeah, I mean, excuse me. Once they get this going and, again, it goes into production, if there's anything that can be improved on, or if there's like a newer add-on or design or, something where instead of buying a whole new, say, like, I don't know, MMU2 X, whatever, make up your own name, if that was possible, I'm sure they would look into it. And then if so, it would just be putting out an upgrade kit for that, so you can swap it over and add more to it. But for, like I said, for right now, it's just the main focus is to complete the beta test and get this finally out. Because, we're coming up on New York Maker Faire, and it's been about almost a year now since the MMU2 was, the Mark III was announced, and then it would be the, the multi-material option for that and everything. So for right now, the prime focus is just to get this out.
So how has the beta testing been going so far?
Well, as some of you guys know, I'm involved in it. I'm part of the external team because of, I'm in the States now. But for this particular project, excuse me, for me personally, this is the highest number of beta testers that we've had on a project, both internal and external testers. The testing right now should be wrapping up very soon, and there should be some news in about 2 to 3 weeks. It should there should be an update posted on it. Right now, it's going very good. Because for one good thing is that for our external testers, since they're worldwide, there's always, a few of us working on this around the clock. And then, we do our stuff, and then, the EU guys will pick up and they'll do their stuff, and we'll collaborate and just, really get this working. And then we'll work with the external testers will work with our developers internally and, give them their results and see how it's going. And if there's any changes that need to be made within the software or hardware, it is being made, those are taken into account and will go into the final product design.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, it's definitely an amazing addition to the Prusa lineup and the Prusa ecosystem for sure. And I'm looking forward to playing with that. And for those who don't know, I've been posting this screenshot of one of my webcams, and I wanted to show the palette Plus playing nice with a Prusa Mark II S. So this is actually my palette Plus printing on the Mark II S. And right now these two are printing very much in harmony, and I'm really enjoying using one of my Prusas with the palette. So I wanted to say that, basically say that it's not a competition. We didn't bring Mitch on here and Shane on here to kind of duke it out to see whose MMU unit is the best. We wanted to see what all in the community is being developed in this area, because it's such an exciting frontier to be in 3D printing, period. But now we're 3D printing in multiple colors and in a beautiful way. So to see Prusa continue to expand on their offerings of multi-material units, and it, like Shane mentioned, it's all open source, and then to see how the community will then take the open source and apply it elsewhere. I mean, that's just, it's going to be fun and amazing to watch how that all plays out. And then to have a nice turnkey product like the Palette 2, which is a very much a plug and play solution that can go on any 1.75 millimeter printer. It's really exciting. So we're not trying to at any, there's what's a good way to say this? We're not affiliated with Prusa or Palette or Mosaic, I should say. So it's nice to be able to hear from, both sides what's coming on the horizon and see the products that are coming. So
one thing that really helps with this too is this is the second generation for both products.
it is, yeah.
So a lot of the learning curve has gone through. And, for me, that's a big comfort factor. Shane, you'll be happy to know that I just put my order in.
Sweet.
There's another one waiting online. But watching, round one, I've been bitten so many times, being on the bleeding edge of technology. For a change, I actually sat back and thought others can go in and dive in with the first generation. But you can see with, as I said, with both of these products, a great deal of maturation with their designs, the packaging, and it looks like both of these products are very solid products. I'm saying that without having my hands on one yet, but they're looking good, and I am excited about that.
And I'll be running two. I'll be running the Palette 2, the Palette Plus, and I'll be running the MMU 2.0 all together in harmony here. So I have absolutely no problem with running multiple products, that work. The MK3 and the MMU2 are obviously, a great match. It was pretty much built for that. So putting that on there seems to be like a no-brainer to me. The price point's right, and 5 materials right on top. So my Palette 2 is going to go on my other MK2, and my original Palette Plus is going to remain on the MK2S. So I'm going to have 3 printers that are a mix of Prusa and Mosaic, but all 3 will be able to print multicolor. And it's just awesome because I just went from being non-multicolor at all to almost being completely multicolor as far as my production printers.
If I might just say one thing, I would like to thank everyone involved in this. I don't look at this as like, us versus them or any type of competition. If anything, you're giving a forum for myself and the company that I work for, as well as Mosaic, to you're giving you end users or customers the different options they have. Oh, I like this or I like that, and here's all the information, and you just better informing the community, and I'm very appreciative of that.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the cool things that Richard had mentioned, was that both of these products are in their second iteration, and I just listening to you and Mitch talk about how these products were developed, it sounds like the community feedback was a huge part of how these things were developed and the decisions that were made in these products. So that is awesome, because I love how you guys feed off the community's feedback. And with that, Tony Ryan did have a quick question. He wanted to know about the slicing workflow on the for the MMU2. If you can walk us through quickly kind of how you would take like a multi-colored STL, so your 4 or 5 cut STL, and slice it for multicolor. What does that look like?
All right, so unfortunately, I can't do screen sharing right now, but for those of you who have any experience with the Multimaterial one, it's very similar. For those of you who don't, you have your STL file already set for multimaterial printing, and you would load all those objects into Slicer, and it will recognize it, and it'll say, hey, this is a multi-material print. Should I treat it like so? And you just click on yes, and it loads it all into one complete model. And then what you do is you click on each part. It would open up a window, and then you would assign it. Beforehand, you would assign it for the which extruder you'd want to use, or which material. Now there's a few more options in there, again, to wipe into the infill, and you would scroll through each of those parts. You would get it set up. You would slice it. just as you would any other model, and then it will go into the preview mode, and then you can see it there. You can even sit there and tweak the different filaments selectors within Slicer to that color, so you have a general idea of how it's going to look like. And then once you export that, one thing that you will notice is if you use the wipe into infill or the wipe objects, after you slice it and save the G code, you'll notice that that wipe tower will change to reflect the changes, so you can actually see the savings that you'll how much material that you'll save from the wipe tower itself. But for the most part, it's fairly simple. If you're familiar with Slicer itself, then it's very easy to do. If you're not familiar with it, it's not difficult to quickly pick up and learn.
Okay, so I've got it here, and I went ahead and added the original MMU unit.
Yep.
I don't currently have one, but I went ahead and added the preset for it. So
Yep.
basically what you're saying is you just hop into add and bring in all 4 of the STLs.
Yep.
Multiple objects were loaded from multi-material printer. Instead of considering them as multiple objects, should I consider these files to represent a single object having multiple parts?
Yes.
So I click yes on that. And then I would be able to adjust. How do I do this?
If you double click the object itself.
Ah.
Yep, exactly. You have right there, it recognizes each separate part. And then if you go a little bit lower, exactly right there, you can assign each extruder to those. All right. And right now, the only difference is with this particular setup is, obviously between the MMU 1 and 2 is that extra extruder. And that's it, because we carried over the software updates. So now like I said, you have those options for the wipe tower built into both units. So now it's the only difference between the two software wise is just that one extra material to be used.
Okay. So yeah, basically you just get in and assign what extruder has the color for this particular object set that you want then.
Correct.
Okay. Very cool. It looks like he also, question was more from Mitch and Mosaic, curious about Palette 2 and other slicers, i.e. slicing workflow for P2 versus P+. Tony, I think I could probably answer that one real quick. I think he talked a little bit about how workflow would be very similar if you wanted to remain using Chroma. So you would slice using your slicer and then import into Chroma and then assign your colors in there. Whereas he was talking about how Canvas was going to be more of a turnkey, bring in your models and then color them in here. Now slicing right now for Canvas is still the same. You'd have to get inside of like your Simplify 3D or whatever other slicer you're using and basically assign each color to whatever process in this case. So for like silver, if I want the mountain to be silver, I need to know what is that mountain. Mountain is OR2 model, so I'd get into silver, go to select models, and hit OR2. And now that is now tied and bound to my silver color. And this is basically the way that it will be on the palette. So this is input 1, 2, 3, and 4, depending on what you have the tool head set to. So you can select tool head 0, 1, 2, or 3, and that's input 1, 2, 3, and 4, if that makes any sense.
Joe, Mike, I do have some more questions then.
Yeah.
If we want to do them.
Go for it.
Okay. One I want to ask, because I remember seeing it in the chat during Mitch talking about the palette, but it was in regards to the MMU2, and I didn't get a chance to write it down. The purge block, and Shane, you may or may not be able to answer this. How does the purge block compare on MMU2 versus MMU1?
If you just use the straightforward, all the default settings, you would have to sit there and take. It's going to be primarily software, right? Because you need to take the version of Slice that originally came out with the MMU1 and compare it to the newer version. Whereas the default settings, they're very similar, but with the newer software updates, you have much more control over that, as mentioned before. So it really depends upon if you put it all straight to default, no wipe into infill, no overall changes, it's going to be very similar to size and volume.
Okay. Next question is actually one of my questions. So, and I may be totally wrong in saying this, the MMU2, when it retracts, it snips the end of the filament, correct?
No, it does not. When it retracts, it loads and retracts it a little bit more, so it will form a tip onto the end of the filament, so that way when it loads and unloads, it goes much smoother. Gotcha. There is a little blade on the selector itself. So say if it didn't retract just enough and there was a little bit of a tip on there, it would move and it would cut that tip off, so it wouldn't mess up the actual loading the filament from the selector all the way into the Bondtech gears on the extruder of the machine. Because if there was that little tip there, it could push it too much down and it could throw it off a little bit. So that blade there is primarily there to if there was like a little partial bit sticking out right before the filament enters the selector, it will cut that off.
So it's sort of just if something's sticking out too far, essentially.
Correct.
So then my question is a little bit still more relevant to that. And this is probably more of a maintenance question, question for people once they have their MMU2s. That little snippet that gets cut off, what happens to that?
If you've seen the designs that are online now with the photos, the MMU2 sits back at a slight angle and there is a small little tray underneath that. So that's where all those little snippets go, is right underneath there.
Gotcha. Excellent. And unfortunately, I was at Murph and could have seen it and didn't actually get to see it in operation or actually even get to look at it at all to be able to see how it was. It was just too crowded. So thank you for answering that. Filament Frenzy also asked, does the MMU2 come with everything you need, like a spool holder? Or I guess more so the broader question, what all does the MMU2 come with when you purchase that?
Yep. Well, either version, whether it be the upgrade kit from the MMU1 to MMU2 or the upgrade itself, it comes with everything. It comes with all the parts, the motors, the electronics, the wiring, and again, no soldering is needed with that. And it comes with the spool holders. It comes with everything, even the tools to put it together, an assembly manual, and knowing Prusa, it will come with the Haribos. But it's basically going to be everything that you could need. You shouldn't have to really go out to the store and get tools or go online and print this out before if something gets changed or anything else like that. It basically comes with everything you need.
Okay.
I will say that the lack of Haribo is one area of improvement, I believe, that Mosaic could.
We used to sit there and we would give out the cola ones, the strawberries, the blueberry, all different types, and oh my god, I gained about 10 pounds.
Twin snakes, man, that's where it's at. Those, one side is sweet, one side is sour. It's a little. Anyone else?
I know Printed Solid always teases that they eat all the good candy and then send out the
crap
stuff
candy
in the maker boxes.
It's like that stuff you give your little brother after Halloween. You take all the good stuff and it's like, here's all the nerds, man.
Well, the only bad out, I actually get the candy now.
The only bad thing is about trying to ship bags of candies with the printers in the summertime. You'll see a few of the photos online. the gummy bears melt. It's just a pool of liquid something.
I need to go grab my bag. I'll be right back.
Okay.
So what you're saying is the melting point, the glass transition of gummy bears is lower than PLA.
Exactly.
And then I had another question for you as well. So as Mitch was talking with palette, we're seeing the painting feature, and this may be again, so because I don't have a Prusa, I haven't quite paid as much attention to it, like all the specifics, but palette has the painting feature where you can import a non-multi-part object and paint the collar in. Does Prusa offer that now? And if they don't, is that a planned feature?
Right now, no, it is not. But it is, again, as it's been requested often. I'm sure the developers will figure out a way how to do it and still keep it open source. So it would be possibly a feature added to Slicer, or possibly a standalone program if that comes to fruition. If I could just answer 3D Gusner real quick.
Yep, go for it.
You want to know if the MMU2 is tested on the MK2.5. Right now, the core testing is being done on the MK3 to get it tuned just right. Right after that, it goes right on to an MK2.5 and then see what tweaks in the firmware for the 2.5. Man, that looks sour there, Joe Mike.
Yeah, well, I wasn't expecting it was the flavor profile. So it's like, that one was what I thought was lemon and lime, but it's actually apple and lemon. And I was like, where did the apple come from? Anyway, I'm sorry.
That's all right. It just made me laugh. I thought it was funny. But yeah, so what will happen is right after the MK3 is fully tested and ready to go, the MMU2 will be attached to MK 2.5, and then whatever changes need to be made in the firmware or anything else like that will take effect, because it's going to be a lot quicker beta testing the MMU2 on a 2.5, because we already have the machine tested, ready to go. It's just a matter of tweaking it out. Just changing around the firmware and everything else.
Do we have a shipping time yet on the MMU 2?
Right now, we're trying to basically get it out as soon as possible, because once the beta testing is done, it basically goes into any type of changes that need to be made to the printed parts or the electronics or anything else. Once that is set up, then they'll take a unit, check it out, make sure everything is perfect, then put it into production and then get it out as soon as possible. Because I know, believe me, I hear it often, is, when is it going to get it shipped out? And I know people get frustrated and, quite frankly, pissed off when the shipping dates get pushed back. And the best way that I can try to describe it is we want to make sure that it does what we say it will do. Because if we sit there and send something out and it doesn't work like we say it's going to, then the backlash is a lot more, because then we just have empty promises and everything else. When we started off with the MK3 and we sent out units, and there was a mix-up where it was they were post-production units, but they were assembled in-house, and they were sent out by mistake as assembled, like full production assembled units. The designs were all there. Everything was still the same thing, except it was just different different designs in the printed parts, and it just turned into a little bit of definitely an embarrassment for me, a nightmare. But stuff like that we learn from, and it's not gonna, I'm not gonna say it's never gonna happen again, but we've learned from those mistakes. And so now it's like with the MMU2, like I said before, the amount of beta testers involved in this project and all the other collaboration between the different departments to get this done and out the door is just, for me, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, and I know that's kind of been a sore point in the community, and like you said yourself, a lot of people have asked, "Where's my MMU2?"
Yep.
In all honesty, this is just my opinion. You know what you guys are doing, running it through its paces, getting it fine tuned, getting it working. For everybody who pre-ordered, I realize you want what you paid for, but you want what you paid for to work when you get it. You don't want to be the beta tester. Some people may, but in all reality, if you're paying for it, you want to pay for the end product. So, I mean, it sucks, but you know, to an extent, that's what it costs for being on the cutting edge and being an early adopter of something, especially, you know, a pre-order. If it were me and I had the money to put towards it and I had a Prusa printer and I put my money down, I would hope that, you know, the product I receive isn't going to require me to, oh, hey, by the way, we've changed this part, you know, the day after I received it. Can you go print this part out and put it in your product? From a tinkerer side of things, from a maker aspect, I wouldn't have a problem with that. But I mean, we want to continue to push the 3D printing market and industry into being more user-friendly and more open to everybody. So, I mean, what you guys are doing, in all honesty, for me, I respect the delays to it. Yeah, I realize it's frustrating, but it kind of comes with the territory a little bit. I'm excited to see you guys get it out. I'm excited to see what people do with it, just like I'm excited to see what people do with the palette. I really can't wait, but at the same time, you know, understanding the development and the testing of everything makes sense. Everybody just sit back and wait.
Wait.
But we do appreciate, you know, a lot of people's patience and understanding with that, you know, because for me, if I look at it from a customer's point of view, I would be upset too. And there's, you know, it's just like, you know, kind of like that South Park thing with the Game of Thrones. Like, where are the dragons? Oh, they're coming. They're coming. The MMU2 is coming. I promise you. But no, it is coming. And I really think a lot of people will be very happy with it, especially for previous owners of the MMU1. Just as well as, you know, people who never had that unit and get the MMU2 as their first multi-material option.
Very cool. Matt, were there any additional questions?
I think for the most part, that was it. I just had one comment for both Mitch and Shane. Again, thank you very much for you guys joining us tonight. I know, Joe Mike, this didn't fit the intended game plan for tonight, where you wanted to talk about all the options for multi-material printing, not just palette and not just...
There's still time left, man.
Oh, I know. But I think this couldn't have gone better. And for the first time ever, Mitch and Shane, you guys made our chat silent for periods of time. I posted, I was picking on the chat, how quiet they were being. Everybody's just that focused on what you guys have to say, which we've never had that happen on these streams yet in a year and a half. So I just want to say thank you to you guys. You did a great job tonight answering questions, and we really do appreciate you guys both taking time out of your day to come on.
Yeah,
It's not a problem.
absolutely. I think the cool like town hall feel, you know, it's very rare to get manufacturers and manufacturer representatives into an open town hall forum kind of like this, where they're at the mercy of the community. So much respect for both you and Mitch for submitting yourselves to a little bit of community torture. And so, yeah, thank you both for stopping in and for participating. We really do appreciate that.
Anytime. Thanks again for having us.
Yeah, anytime to you guys. So we've passed our 2-hour mark a little bit, so definitely want to go through the channel lineup or our participant lineup, so we can kind of do that. I'm starting to fade. This is what dadhood does to you. It's like 11 o'clock.
This is your normal waking hour, isn't it?
Huh?
I said this is your normal waking hour now, isn't it?
I feel so abnormal right now because usually by this time I've got a baby in one hand and I'm feeding. I'm like, this, I feel weird. So major kudos to my wife, by the way, who is taking care of our newborn tonight, so I could be freed up to do this. So incredibly thankful for her to be able to sacrifice a little bit so I can take part in this. Anyways, Matthew, you're up first if you want to go ahead and do your thing.
Matt from How I Do It. Like I said at the very beginning of the show, I do a little bit of everything, 3D printing, woodworking, metalworking. We've been doing quite a bit of design work using our Silhouette die cutter, doing t-shirt designs, which actually, if I can plug it here real quick, I've got just released in a series of maker shirts that I'm doing. This is the very first one. It's the I Could Print That 3D printing t-shirt, and they have the How I Do It logo small up in the back. Now this one here is like an athletic shirt. The ones that are for sale on Etsy are just standard t-shirts. But I'm starting a series of maker related t-shirts that are going to be woodworking, metalworking, 3D printing. Trying to come up with some original stuff that's not out there yet to kind of fill a little bit of a hole in the market. All that goes to supporting my channel. So, but otherwise I'm on Twitter as @CountryCowboy, youtube.com/HowIDoIt, Instagram and Facebook as Matthew Flinchball. And I'm elsewhere too, but those are the main places. So.
Very good. Very good. You did have to pick a CR10 for that shirt, which is kind of disappointing, but
hey,
whatever.
man, I made my own art for it, so.
All right, Mitch C, you're up, good sir. Mitch C with the See Me CNC shirt.
Yeah, just gotta represent. Yeah, I'm Mitch, Mitch 3D, Mitch C. Again, I don't work for Mosaic. Anyway, I'm Mitch 3D on YouTube, the Mitch 22 on Twitter, Instagram, and other things. This is a little something I'm going to be working on that I'm printing on right now that might involve the duet. So, but that's pretty much it. Obviously, the pallette's going to probably solve that issue with the filament runoff sensors, but we'll see how that works. Yeah. So me, my Artemis. I got a Prusa there. I'm giving away a printer to a friend of mine, and then I have another printer that I'm trying to get a BL Touch on. Thank you, Joe. And I should get that running pretty soon, so I'll be going to another friend. And then I have a D-Bot that I haven't built yet that I'm going to be building. And then I'm also designing another Delta printer. So I got my hands full.
Sounds like.
Hopefully I'll be documenting this on the internet soon.
Okay. Well, Mitchell is up next. I don't know if he wants to weigh in or if we want to kind of let Mitch and Shane go ahead and take their leave and get back to, what they're doing. Because they were incredibly more than gracious with their time and what they've given to us. So, Mitchell, if you want to say something, feel free.
Yeah, no, I'll jump off here. But thank you again for the community, for everyone tuning in and being part of the conversation, and for all you for hosting this. And I think let's hope it's the first of many. I think we all have each other's contact info, so let's keep in touch. Thanks again so much, everyone.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
See you guys. Bye.
Mr. Richard Murray.
Oh, Richard Murray, the guy with the hat. Still looking for some models of this. See what we can put out there. And soon I'll be able to print it in multi-materials. So looking forward to that. The channel is the Zidim channel, Z-I-D-I-M. And if you go to zidim.com, my website, it connects you to all the stuff I'm involved with. I've just moved in to a new studio area here. There's a lot more space. And in about 2 weeks, I hope to be back on every Wednesday live. And I wasn't with the original shows, but I've been here for most of the Friday night hangouts. It's been a lot of fun. And yes, once again, to our guest, it was a fantastic show. Thank you for being on. Learned a lot, and well, it pushed me to hit the buy button. So I get to play with more stuff down the road.
All right. And then Mr. Ross from Gear Down for What? You are up.
Hi, I'm Ross from the YouTube channel Geared On For What. You can find me by the links that I'll post in the comments. I like building robotics, and I'm a multi-material wannabe, I guess you could say, because I'd really like to have a multi-material setup, but I'm waiting for reviews to come out on the MMU2 to see what everyone else thinks of it, and then I'll probably jump out and buy one if they turn out good. I guess I don't know if I said I have a YouTube channel. I like to make stuff, and I think that's all I got. I think I'm going to take off too, so we'll see you guys later.
All right. Well, Ross, it was nice having you in for a little bit. I'm sorry you didn't get to, you know.
I like your robot arm. Pretty cool.
Hey, Ross, you had a question for Shane too, didn't you? About a certain filament from Prusa?
Oh, yeah, I was curious if Prusa was ever going to come out with gummy bear filament, and if they were ever going to finish that Master Chef upgrade.
Oh, dear Lord. You know, I had people asking me for tech support on that. I'm like, it's an April Fool's joke. Okay. It's like, well, I can't get it to do this. I'm like, just go. But, you know, knowing those guys, I'm sure they will, you know, just to, you know, for laughs. As far as what we're manufacturing for filament, I've seen some of the stuff, and it's actually really good. For example, there was this one shade of like, it's a copperish green, and if you ever follow Joseph on, you know, social media or the company itself, it's the model of the mask, you know, from the movie The Mask, and the way it was done. It's like a copperish green. It looks really good. As far as like a pink gummy bear color, I know there is a shade of pink. If it's close to gummy bear color, I couldn't tell you, but you never know what they'll figure out next.
I think we want actual gummy bear filament. So
yeah, I think that's what Ross is after. He wants edible filament.
I want to be able to eat it, yeah.
Yeah.
But how are you going to print with it?
You print a gummy bear with it.
Well, you mentioned that the gummy bears melt in the box when you ship them, right? Is that what you were saying?
Dude,
so then you can melt the gummy bear into filament, and then you could print a gummy bear with the filament.
From the gummy bear that melted.
You know, 2 years, well, a year and a half, 2 years ago, I joked about licorice. You can get the round, like shoestring licorice, about running that through a hot end, and I never did do it because the melting temp's pretty low. Someday I got to do it. I got to just buy a cheap E3D knockoff or something and run some shoestring licorice through
it. Yeah, no. Shane, do you want to go ahead and do an outro and then get back to helping out the community?
Well, actually, I'll give an outro just for myself. And again, I would just sit there and like to thank everyone involved for allowing me to come on here and to, you know, talk to everyone. I love getting involved with the community. As far as myself and my work shift goes, I'm almost done with it. So what I could do is just mute my mic, and then when I'm officially off of work, if you guys will have it, I'd love to sit there and hang out with you guys, if that's possible.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Yeah, you're more than welcome to hang out for sure. I just wasn't sure if that you were still, you know, trying to do a billion things at once, and I didn't want to make you feel like you were obligated to stay.
Oh no. No, I love hanging with you guys.
Well, heck yeah, hang out.
Joe Mike might be snoring, but we'll be here.
Usually around this time of the night, I get a little ornery, but we'll see how that goes since I'm not on my channel and we're on this channel now. Okay, so I am Joe Mike Terranella. I'm tonight's host, and you can find me on my YouTube website, Joe Mike Terranella. It's just my name. If you search for Joe Mike, you'll find me. I'm on Twitter as Mojike. That's where I post most of my 3D printed related social media posts. And then I also have an Instagram account, Terranella, which is where I kind of post more of my personal stuff. So like baby pictures and then me doing random crap. I have been playing with multicolor for a while since I got the palette, and it's becoming a slow obsession. And so I thought tonight's topic, right after the announcement of Mosaic's palette 2, was just, you know, on par, and really was looking forward to talking about it and geeking out over it with everybody else. So one thing that I did want to do tonight was kind of go into legacy multicolor printing. So the way that we've multicolor printed in the past, with either dual extruders or with a layer-based color change. And I'm sure all of us at some point have played with the layer color change. And I also wanted to see if any of you all had multicolored prints you wanted to show off. So does anyone have any multicolored prints they want to show off? Because I've got a couple. And Richard is leaving.
I gotta wait till October before I get.
He's gonna. Whoops,
I had a multicolor print around here, but I think Brenna picked it up last weekend.
Shane said
it's gone.
Shift, and then he'll be back on them.
Well, here, let me.
Yeah, it definitely isn't fun having to go through the G code and put it in manually that way. When Prusa Control brought out the easy way to go about it, that was made life really easy, especially for someone like Brenna who doesn't want to get into the code, but can just pick the layer and say, I want to change there, and put in a pause, and it's the old pause, and manually change the filament and continue. So that was a big advance, you know, at least for us, for the old way of doing things.
Yeah, I used to do the code digging. Cura allowed you to plug in, using their plugins manager thingy, a stop at a certain Z height. But after a while of going through that, and after going to Simplify 3D, I was like, I'll just get in and inject the code manually on you know, Notepad++. So I actually had a saved code block, and I would open up Notepad++, search, do a find for the layer I wanted, and pop my code right before that layer, and it would it worked pretty well. I do want to show off some of these Palette Plus prints. Now this, just to clarify, this isn't the Palette 2. That is not in the hands of the general public yet. So this is with what is currently offered by Mosaic. Let me see if I can switch to my secondary cam. Okay, so the first thing that I actually printed was Bender from Futurama. And I really like this print because it's 100% infill. I guess the only way to really demonstrate that is by doing that. It's the 100% infill was actually an accident. I printed a little owl bookmark, the one that you can get off of Thingiverse, to actually do my first multicolor print, and it was 100% infill, and then I accidentally left it on 100% infill when I sliced this guy, and this was almost 2 spools of Prusa's filament. I mean,
it's hand sized.
it's literally 100%. I mean,
it's a great weight for gluing things.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, it's a great paperweight. Another thing that I have been doing, and if you follow me on the Twitter, then you'll recognize this guy. He's in process, but Polyprime is my Optimus Prime from Chaos Cortec, and this is done on the Palette Plus, and this is all polyalchemy filament. So you'll notice that you got a lovely shade of blue on the head. That's the night sky, which is beautiful. Aquamarine for the eyes, and I think onyx for the darker gray. And then the body, you've got, you know, your Crimson Red, you've got Onyx, you've got Abyss, and then you've got a little bit of the Gold Rush there. So that one, I'm still tweaking out the slicing settings for the rest of him because I was running into a little bit of issues. But yeah, this guy's huge. And then I just wanted to show kind of the results because I was showing you all the Catan tiles in the slicer, but here's one that's actually printed. And I am loving this. I initially did the Catan tile as a quick thing to print for tonight. And I liked it so much that I'm actually in the process of printing out the entire Catan set now. So I'm doing all the tiles and all the other stuff that is needed for it. So I'm really, really happy with that. I mean, there's just a handful of the multicolored prints that I've done so far with the limited time I've had my Palette Plus, and having the Prusa MMU2 and the Palette 2 will make it to where I can now print, multicolor on any of my Prusas, which are my main printers. So that should be fun. Matthew?
So I've done quite a few times. I've done multi-material stuff. Unfortunately, I don't have a lot of it to show, but I've done it on just a dual extruder system with a side-by-side. This is one of the more recent things I did. Now, this is just a test piece to check screw holes and stuff. It's actually a logo for my boss's father-in-law's boat that they're restoring. I took the original boat manufacturer's logo and changed it. He wanted it to say the name of the boat, but look like the old logo. So I went with matched up the text and everything and went with a vintage logo of the boat company and then changed the wording on it to be the name of the boat. This is actually done in Matter Hacker's nylon, Pro Nylon series. PLA. Nylon. Dual extruded side by side. Unfortunately, that's not the completed one. That was just my test piece. But the final one, I was trying to find the picture of it while Joe Mike was talking. Final one's on the boat now, and they're super happy with that. I've done little things here and there. One of the things that I've been so looking for a use for is Protopasta's conductive filament. I would love to find something more than like the battery tester and stuff like that to kind of play with that a little bit more. I've got a sample of it that I've had from Printed Solid for a year and a half or so that I'm looking for that proper use for it.
I thought it'd be interesting to try to make some basic logic circuits with that. And gates, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I've seen people use it for like capacitive buttons and stuff like that already, like touch capacitive buttons. And I just haven't figured out what I want to do with it yet.
I don't understand. With the sign, you printed nylon. How's that going to hold out on the boat outside?
Should hold up pretty well because the glass transition shouldn't be a problem, which is primarily the reason I went with nylon. Nylon likes water once it's in a final form. It doesn't like to print with water in it, but it does. One of the ways to extend the life of nylon is to keep it wet. So that's another reason why I went with it on a boat. Plus, not growing because of the print lines, the layer lines, and everything in it. I didn't want it to start to kind of grow any kind of bacteria or anything on it that would discolor it quickly. So the only thing that I'm not sure about is being the fact that it's collared nylon. I don't know how well the collaring will hold up over time, which is one of the understandings. It's sort of an experiment. My boss bought the 2 rolls of filament for me to do the blue and the red lettering to match the boat's collars, with the understanding that this is sort of an experiment. And actually, one of the things I didn't show with this, so I printed this on my FlashForge. It's Power Spec Ultra, but it's a FlashForge Dreamer. it's too wide for the bed. So what I did is I modeled in a now I'm drawing a blank on the name.
Dovetail.
Dovetail joint.
Thank you. Dovetail joint. So once the final one was printed, they could snap together, and actually that dovetail, because of the layer lines, just kind of completely disappeared in the final one. So yeah, besides UV breaking down the collar in it, I think it'll hold up well over time, just because it is constantly around water. So I'm not worried about the nylon itself breaking down from UV, drying it out, essentially.
Very interesting. Yeah. I remember doing a bunch of. Oh man, I'm showing you Thingiverse. I remember doing a bunch of keychains for what the buddy. Got the dropsies, man. There was a customizable keychain that was on Thingiverse, and I started printing them out in dual color, like a single base color for the chain, and then the text on top in a different color. And I was giving those out to fellow hams with their call signs on them, and they really loved those. And it was so simple to inject one thing of code to change the layer and make a two-colored print. And I mean, they didn't know that it was, a layer thing or internal model kind of deal, but to them it was a 3D printed object with two colors on it. And that's, was pretty impressive to a bunch of uber nerds like hams, because we are uber nerds. I mean, we're like professional hobbyists. So
yeah, actually, you know what, Joe might get
professional hobbyist. Okay.
what?
Professional hobbyist. I like that.
Yeah,
put that on the card.
Yeah, there you go.
Professional hobbyist.
I was looking for it as you said it. It reminded me. I have the Friday night logos. The very first one that I printed when I did the model of it from Mike's design that we use for the logo now. Those are all layer changes. I've done quite a bit of layer changes doing multi-material. The ones that I printed 11 inches wide and gave to some of the initial co-hosts that helped start the Friday night stream. Those were all done doing the same technique, layered filament changes in between, just pausing the print, changing, and then also doing it through G-code as well, so that it would automatically pause. That's actually a really cool way if you don't have any kind of multi-material, dual extruder, anything like that. Really good way to do all kinds of stuff, including once you know how to do that, you now also know how to do captive parts too, dropping nuts into a part, really going multi-material where you actually have real metal parts in your print. My We the Rosies part that I printed has both my daughter's names inside of it, and Vicky Soma did the same. She did famous women that inspire her, I believe, or just women that inspire her. I forget exactly how she did it, and put their names inside of her parts. So even multi-material means, to most of us, means using multiple collars of filament, different types of filament, but also kind of, it's not exactly multi-material printing, but that can include captive parts too. Once you know how to do a layer change, filament change in layers, you also know how to do captive parts as well.
I think that's one thing that E3D was kind of hinting at with their multi-tool changer device that they've been working on, was that one of them could possibly be a pick and place. So it could go over and pick up a metal nut and go and place it in the print, and then change the tool and then continue the print around the nut. So that being said, a multi-processing, not only multi-material, multicolor, but multi-process, where you then can integrate the other objects into the print, that would then take, consumer manufacturing up a huge notch.
Could you imagine how popular that would have been with the fidget spinners?
Oh man, have it place bearings automatically.
Dropping nuts in, dropping bearings in, dropping
Yeah.
weights in the middle of it, whatever.
Yeah, that would have been great. We talked about, the last one I hosted, we talked about making complex objects, and I was trying to find it. I finally found it. This is from Angus, and this is his tolerance tester. And each one of these discs has a different level of tolerance. I can't see it on the camera, but it's listed on the inside, and you have a little gear. They actually turn and go, okay, that tolerance level, no, this one, my printer's not handling. So now I have to do some tweaking. But it was a great design. I don't think he left it on Thingiverse. He pulled it from there, but I do believe the model is out there somewhere. But as I said, I just figured out where I'd put it. I had it in a safe place for the last show. But very handy tester to find out what is working for your tolerances. Crucial for me because I got a print going on right now where tolerances are key.
Hey, we just got Shane on video.
Yep, I'm off work now, so now I can go on video.
He
I was
moved
doing
all the
chat.
secret stuff out of the way.
That's what you look like.
That's exactly what I look like. No, if I would have been like trying to do chat and talking to you guys, I have 2 screens set up here, and I just would have been going crazy trying to figure out everything. So,
Sorry, Shane. And he felt it was appropriate to not come on camera until after the 2-hour mark when we go not family friendly.
I always
I'm
knew
gonna need a therapist now.
OT.
Oh, this is just, I'm too lazy to shave.
That's where I'm sitting at right now. If I'm too tired to shave. I'm too tired to shower.
I have this hat that I have to match too, and the beard just fills it out nicely. So
it does. I love that hat.
It's very fashionable.
Oh man.
See, what I'm surprised Richard didn't bring up. When I started with the company, not too long, Richard got his printer, and I was helping him with it. And we were doing not a live stream or anything else, just a video conference. And he was the first person I ever worked with trying to do like a video stream to try to figure out what was going on with his printer. And then he did a father-daughter build with your daughter, and that I love that stream. That was like, it was just like hanging out, just listening to all the stories and everything else while you two were building. It was awesome.
Well, it was great fun, especially when we had problems and we were getting your comment. No, take a look over here. And no, it was great. So I'm going to stream my next build too. So
I have referenced that stream specifically when people talk about Prusa, ask about Prusa. I have referenced Richard's stream and Shane, you getting on that live stream in the chat and just working through Richard assembling the Prusa as like sort of an example of the type of support that you get for buying a Prusa versus buying a Wanhao i3. That I've been using that ever since Richard got his Prusa, and you guys did that. That was really cool to see.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, because it was just like, I was doing my work and I had the stream up and I would listen to them, and if they had something, I'll quickly jump on and take a look at it. I'm like, oh, no, do this or do that or turn to this step or whatever. And it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed that. That's the I don't want to say banter, but just the casual conversation you had with your daughter during that whole thing. It was just a really cool experience.
It was an absolute blast. And on top of that, since then, she built her own computer. And, she's off working on another film right now. But nice. She carries her printer with her. She operates between Calgary and Vancouver, and she's having some printer problems. So she actually tore her MK2S, stripped it right down, and built it right back up, and calibrated it, and it's running like a charm right now. Nice. So I think that's what getting a kit confidence to do. Because if we bought an assembled printer, not a chance that would have happened.
Yep.
But that's such an important aspect to the hobby, is being able to do that, and it's just a great deal of fun to be able to have people watching you and chatting with them and seeing how things progress and watching other people build their systems. So I've loved it.
Yeah.
And that's since she has moved on. That's why I have room to put stuff in here and get my MK3 put together. My MK2S I put together that has a certain person's signature on it. Is probably going to be making its way over to a new makerspace here in town.
Awesome. It's great news.
Yeah. So a lot of fun that. I was just checking. I was hoping I had a print done, but it's not. I have a Moy now, so I'm doing an SLA print, and it's a one of those things where people go, "Oh, you do 3D printing? This is broken. Can you give me one of these?" And yeah, you can, and it works.
So the one thing that I am curious about, what is Mitch doing back there?
That's what I was wondering.
Shaking my magic group.
Oh, shake that magic.
Hey guys, don't, with Mitch standing back there by the Artemis, don't think the Artemis is actually that big. Mitch is just that small.
It's true, actually. This is on a black table on the floor. This is the size comparison, so.
The Artemis is Mitch's equivalent of notches in the wall to see how high he grew.
You should see me try to carry this thing. It's funny.
You don't have that one set up in a backpack?
Yeah, I mean, I could get it on my back. It's just like 50 pounds. I'd probably break it. I thought about it. I just get a long extension cord.
Actually, the Delta was part of my brain not working. Diamond hot end, discuss.
Mixing extruders. Yeah, so that's actually another really cool way of doing mixing multi-material printing is you've got the diamond extruder where you're actually putting 4 filaments into the nozzle. You've actually got 4, I believe all the diamonds use E3D V6 hot ends feeding into one nozzle from 4 angles. And that actually allows you to push multiple filaments at the same time. So you can actually do true color blending as opposed to filament changes.
That's into the world of CMYK printing.
Yes.
Exactly, yeah.
Closer. I mean, technically to do CMYK, you would also need to get, you would basically need a 5. If you want full color that route, you'd have to get a 5 point to also.
Actually, you would go with 6 because you want a pure white, pure black, and CMYK.
So why would you need 6? That'd be 5.
Because with the color blending, you'll never get a pure white out of color blending.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You put in a pure white and a pure black, but then you'd only have your red, your green, and your blue, right?
Well, quite often the black you use for doing a mix is not a pure black for doing a print.
Okay.
So that's why you'd go with 6.
So that'd be a difference between PK and like MK. You know, if we're talking, inkjet.
Yeah.
Huh.
So, all depends what sort of definition you're looking at. I think we could spend a whole stream just talking about, that sort of world. They've talked about, Protopasta talked about coming up with, rather than selling filament, selling a specialized type of pellet. And so that's what you're getting from these current filament manufacturers. It's just like getting a thing of toner for your printer, but it's pellets for printing, and then you get your CMYK from that. You sort of look at how a laser printer works, how it is using the CMYK toners and dumping them on. It's just great. Okay, rather than just doing one layer on a sheet, can't you just keep it there and keep building it up and give us a final 3D product? I'm certain somebody must be working on that sort of technology.
So the one thing that I also kind of want to talk about is something that's still relatively new, but that would be how kind of old meets new. And I'm going to do my screen share real quick. And that's this guy. Now, I don't have much to say about the company who put this out, and I'm not really a huge fan of what it's producing, but it is an interesting concept. This is DaVinci's color printer, where they're using an ink absorbent PLA and then using actual ink to basically make any color they want. So you've got your black, cayenne, magenta, and yellow.
Yeah.
Actual ink that is then mixed into this ink absorbing PLA.
Which is essentially just natural PLA, isn't it?
Kind of. I think they make it more hydroscopic, so it absorbs the ink better.
Okay.
That
would probably work pretty well with PETG. Like you can use RIT dye. Well, no, you got to boil it. Never mind.
Yeah, I mean, for most filaments, it's, you know, the hydroscopic properties of it aren't outlandish. I mean, it takes a while for them to absorb moisture. So something would have to be, you know, changed a little bit in order for it to become to the point to where it can absorb this much ink.
Do you remember when, I haven't seen anybody doing it recently, but do you remember when everybody was running Sharpies before their hot end?
Oh, yeah.
It would actually be kind of neat now that I think about it. Attachment that sits on top of your hot end and sits there with different color Sharpies.
And just does
surveys that touch the Sharpies to the filament as it runs in. You didn't get like rich colors from it. Like a blue Sharpie would come out, if you were using white filament and a blue Sharpie, it would come out teal or something like that, like an off blue. But that would actually be kind of neat to see somebody do something like that.
It would be interesting to see how that would hold up over time too, because the Sharpie thing was just kind of like a quick little, let's just mess with it and see what it does.
Yep.
Whereas if you're doing it constantly, who knows what that's doing to the hot end after time? Because not only are you sending the material through the hot end, you're now sending an ink product that was never meant to be oiled like that through the hot end. So I don't know what kind of damage it would do to brass, or you know, if it would leave some kind of a residue over time that would build up to the point where the nozzle would just, you know, no longer be viable. I don't know. It would be interesting just to see that aspect of it.
Ben Hawk 3D Proto said in the chat, which, by the way, hi Ben, you got to catch a US stream. He said, surely that's a filament color change printer rather than multicolor printer from DaVinci.
It's a full
to the
color
palette and the MMU2, which is absolutely right. They're using MMU2 and palette are using multiple color filament, whereas XYZ is changing the color of the filament.
Correct. And so you're using a bland filament. So you're using what they call monochrome on their page. And then you're adding color into the filament via ink. Now, I see where that is kind of appealing on the sense of being able to really print the heck out of different colors and like what they're showing here. But at the same time, I'm not impressed with the results. If you hop onto their site and take a look at this, you can see, you know, how the ink bleeds. And it doesn't look, it just doesn't look right. It looks like someone printed it in the white and then colored over it with a bunch of Crayola markers.
Yeah, if you've ever written on a print with a Sharpie, you get capillary action from the layer lines.
You do.
And it just takes, if you put a dot, it's going to go and stretch out over all the layers that it touched. Just take any white print and do it, and it's blatantly obvious.
I don't know how to say it, but I mean, it's like the presence, the vibrance of the colors and the presence of the colors just are not the same as if the PLA is, you know, it's colored by that way before adding ink. So I mean, all PLA is colored using pellets, but you know, the vibrance of having an actual, I guess I'm talking more along the lines of the opacity. So the opacity of coloring a relatively translucent filament versus having a filament that's, you know, pretty much opaque completely, the richness of color, the depth of color, and the presence of the print, you know, this just looks like, you know, someone colored it with markers like we were talking about. So neat concept. I got to give them credit for that. I know it's completely closed source because it's DaVinci, and the ink's going to be a pretty penny because it's proprietary, and the filament's probably proprietary. So this is a closed ecosystem, as I would call it.
Do you think if that ever took off that we'd see the refillable ink cartridges come back?
And then we'd hear all the arguments about how the ink is subpar,
and then they'd go DRM with the cartridges, and
yeah,
it's a neat idea, but that's one that I really don't see taking off. Filament Frenzy said, and Joe Mike, you referenced that the collars look washed out.
Yeah, totally do. And I mean, at $3,000, that is not something that I would just want to buy to play with, you know? If it was like a $500 or $600 printer that did this, I'd say, yeah, I could possibly justify spending that to play with this.
Yeah.
But there is no way that I would use this printer for production parts.
Right. Which, you know, that's the other side of something that makes me question with this. So, like, let's say PLA with carbon fiber in it, or PLA, Protopasta's copper PLA, okay, copper composite. When you add something into PLA, it to an extent weakens the initial strength of PLA. It makes me wonder with this deal here, you're now introducing ink which has some content of moisture in it. What that does to the strength of a part. I mean, it really makes me question, can these parts in any way hold a function, or are they just to print pretty parts?
Well, look at what they're, you know, showcasing.
Yeah, everything they showcase is just pretty stuff, decorative.
Yeah, we're talking decorative and artistic parts here, nothing functional. And the fact that you can only use it with this PLA, you know, it's not like they have a PETG variant or an ABS variant that you can also color, but only PLA. So you're going to run into your glass transition temp issues if you ever leave this in the car or a hot space.
Yeah, and which takes that price tag and really makes you kind of boggled by the price tag of it.
No, not really, because there's this brand right here in front of it.
Yeah, but brand aside, any printer that has those kind of limitations now almost is totally off my radar. I've seen this one come and, so to speak, to an extent go, because you really don't see people talking about it that much. I know Joe, 3D printing professor, had one. I don't know if he still has it or not, to play around with. And what I've seen of it in the wild, I'm not really that impressed with what I've seen people post pictures of.
So have any of you seen this one, the M3D?
Yeah, I was looking at that one the other day.
And, you know, when we're talking about getting into multicolor, looking at true color, this is just something I came across, but it's something that I have not heard about. So I was just wondering if you had any background on it.
My issue, and like, I exchanged a couple of, let's just say I don't even know how to say it. I exchanged some tweets with M3D when they initially announced that on Twitter. I'm going to lock on your screen, Richard, since you've got it up.
Yep.
So, like, my biggest issue with this particular setup, E3D is obsessed with these tiny little stepper motors.
Yeah.
They're absolutely freaking obsessed with them.
The little geared stepper motors, they suck.
Yeah, I hate them.
Down here.
Yeah, I mean, they literally have shoved, I don't know how many of them on this apparatus that they're calling a hot end. But I mean, that's what this hot end's main driving force is these mini stepper motors. And I mean, it's bad enough to have one stepper motor on an X carriage to do direct drive. You know, I have no problem with that. We've been doing that for years and years and years. We can print relatively quick and accurate without much, you know, jerk issues with a single NEMA 17 on an extruder, even two, but we rarely do two. A lot of the dual extruder setups you see go Bowden to take the weight off, or pancake stepper. However, you know, E3D with these mini steppers are saying, oh, well, you know, they're mini, so they don't have all the weight.
$6.99.
The thing about it is, it's like, yeah, it doesn't have all the weight, but you're also not getting a really decent stepper motor.
Yeah, you've got a stepper that's going to never, and I'm speaking from I have my brother's micro over here. It's a little $25 stepper. I mean, that's what M3D charges for a replacement. The gearing inside of that stepper is all plastic gearing, and it strips.
Yeah. So for that reason, I'm out.
Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to see what the price was like too with these things.
Yeah, it's M3D. I mean,
was that $550 for the Bowden? Where's Richard's screen? Sorry.
The Bowden is $449. The dual's $549. The quad $649.
Oh,
according to this.
And how much is the MMU V2?
$299.
$299. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So for $299, you can get the weight off your printer. Now, granted, at its current iteration, it's only Prusa compatible. Again, maybe down the road, people will take the open source and modify that. Or for $500 right now, you can purchase the Palette 2 and have a system that's on its second generation versus first generation.
And hook it up to a printer that you know works.
Exactly. And if it for some reason doesn't work on that printer, you didn't just go through heavily modifying your printer to put this thing onto it.
I'm glad that Adam got my Shark Tank reference. Thank you, Adam. Yeah, I mean, the M3D as a whole has lost my confidence in their ability to engineer. The M3D Micro was the first exposure that I had to them, and the thing was just so painful to operate that I bought it off of a guy, and then I think I played with it for about a week, and then I sold it on eBay. It was just like, you know, I am no stranger when it comes to 3D printers and the way they operate. And to say that there is absolutely nothing you can do to the Micro to make it print decent, well, at least my definition of decent would be an understatement. I mean, it's just like, there's nothing. And then they came out with the Pro, and it's just like they're doing the same thing but on a larger scale.
Right. There is one thing I'll say that you can do to a Micro to make it print decent, though. One thing. So I've got my brothers over here because the extruder stepper stripped out. I ended up modifying it and making it a Bowden printer and put a regular stepper and the standard extruder that most printers are coming with now. I forget the name of it. Like the TiVo, the Tarantulas have on it, and CR10.
Yeah, the flat block
extruder. I always want to say Wade, and that's not it. Wade's the big.
Wade's the geared extruder.
You're
talking about the hot end and the MK, like MK8 type.
Yep. Yeah, I mounted one of those zip tied to the side of the micro.
No. See, then at that point, it's not really a micro anymore.
No, it's no longer a micro. But there is
taking away the little micro hot end that thing uses. That is like, I don't know who was smoking what when they designed that thing, but
I know on that one why they did what they did, because it's lightweight, and with the gantry style system that they're using on it, you couldn't add that much weight to it.
no, absolutely not. You know why? Because it was all plastic and they were using those tiny dang steppers.
But unfortunately, it sucked for anybody who bought it.
Yeah, I mean, it was. So yeah, as far as that multicolor option that they've, are touting at the moment, I would not put much faith in that being reliable. I mean, it might work up front, but I wanted to say that if you're a regular printer of things, I mean, if your printer's running multiple hours a day or all day, every day, that M3D multicolor option is going to crap out on you relatively fast.
Yeah. Especially with the amount of moves that it's got to make, because you're still going to be doing some retraction and extruding just to do your switches and everything. Oh, and I haven't been that impressed with the prints that I have, pictures of prints that I've seen from that. Like they have that one of the castle that they're touting everywhere. I'm not really that impressed with the look of that thing.
No, it is what it is. I mean, that's unless they got themselves an MMU 2.0 or a palette and printed it out on that and then said, this is what our printer can do. They're kind of stuck with what they've got.
Just looking, Hawk 3D asked, what would be your ideal way of achieving multicolor? There's just the one thing it's still missing from the equation for me, and that's getting back to the multiple temperatures. So that means needing multiple nozzles just to handle that. When you get into multiple nozzles, then you get into a whole new suite of problems. Now, Matt, you're running one printer with dual nozzles, aren't you?
Yeah, I have the Flash Forge that has dual side-by-side extruders on it, or nozzles on it.
Okay, so they're under the same control. Because there's one company out there, its dual nozzle is independent control for each nozzle.
Yeah, the Sigma does it.
Yes, Sigma is the one I'm thinking of.
Shoot, what's that called?
I forgot.
There's a name for that style printer. IDEX.
That's it?
It's the IDEX system, IDEX.
Two independent extruders carriages.
Stacker does it too.
Yes, Stacker.
Which is
and they do it with up to 4.
Yeah, they've got like 4 of them on that single beam. That's what Spectra 3D is using. Now those are more the they're more industrial. I mean, they're doing like circulator pump cast blanks or
investment casting.
Thank you. See, I filled in your words, you fill in mine. That's actually a really cool system, but I know talking to people who've had them, it's a finicky system. One, calibration on the independent heads.
I think calibration would be a nightmare.
Yeah, I mean, like the Flash Forge back here has the dual side-by-side nozzles. There's still calibration to do because you need to know exactly how far on the X and the Y those nozzles are apart from each other. So you have to know all those offsets. I've got my Flash Forge dialed in at this point that it prints extremely well. But having 2 nozzles side by side, there's another problem with that. And like if you look at this one, this is clean. There's no blue bits drug in anywhere in the red, and
oozing.
Actually, you know what? There is.
Yeah.
So right here on the S, you can see there's spots of red up there on the top.
And on the H.
On the H, yeah.
You got to use like an ooze shield.
Ooze shields don't work very well either, because once like something like that, once you're inside the ooze shield on it, that nozzle's still passing over, and unfortunately, if you don't cross the ooze shield on every move,
it still will lose.
Still does that. However, I did find a way to print around it. Like, this is minimal. That H having one speck of red on it is pretty minimal compared to a lot of prints that I ever did. I tweaked my tool change G code, so when it switches from one extruder to the other, it actually, so let's say I'm printing PLA, so I'm printing at 210 degrees roughly. I have, say, my left nozzle at 210 and I'm printing with it. In the meantime, my right nozzle is down at 160. When it goes to switch filaments, the head moves over to a park position that I predetermined, cools down one extruder and heat at the same time heats the other extruder up, then moves back over and prints. That's the only way that I've gotten, like, just that little bit, like that red bit on that H, I can take my fingernail and pop it off of there. It's not actually embedded in the print. But if you print something that's, say, white and black, like a Stormtrooper, you'll have black bits all over the white and white bits all over the black. The downside to that solution is it takes forever to print. I mean, forever. You're talking 30-second pauses in between every layer. So those systems are definitely not without issue, but it can be made to work, but you're still stuck with two.
Sorry, just started watching Smashing Pumpkins live on Twitter. they just started playing tonight, so I was like drawn in. I was like, oh, hello, my old friend. So on the topic of changing the extruder temperature for another material, Shane, the Prusa should be able to do that, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, the way, I mean, again, this is, I don't have the programming skills behind this, but in theory, as is on my views and everything else, it should be possible to, you know, the nozzle moves over, wipes itself down. I believe it would have to raise up a little bit, change the temperature. Then when it realizes that the temperature is correct, load the new filament, you know, wipe it all out and everything else, go to print with it, and then repeat that step over and over. So it would really depend upon just what the temperature differences is between the two. But in theory, yeah, it should be possible.
Something I was thinking about that, because that discussion has come up now with the palette and with the MMU2 and multi-material. Depending on the size of your purge block, by the time you're done purging from one filament to the next, the extruder most likely would have heated up or cooled down, as long as you're not doing drastic changes. Like if you're going from 210 to 230, you can probably get that change just from pushing the filament through, and the extruder would probably heat up in the time it takes to do the purge block. It's kind of the thought I have in my mind with it. Like with the palette, you'd be able to do the same thing. You'd actually be able to print multi-temp and change it if you're using something like Simplify 3D or Prusa Slicer Edition to do your G code, and then you take it into what's the original slicer or coloring program for the palette? Not Chroma. Chroma. So you with Chroma, you do your slicing in your chosen slicer, and then you import that into Chroma. So if you can do multiple processes, then you could you can define your temperature changes and all that stuff. The question is, how does it handle that when it's doing the purge block? If that's included in the purge block or can be included in it. But that would be my idea. Change it while you're doing the purge block, because you don't care what the purge block looks like. Unless you're one of the people who jokes about selling the purge blocks on Etsy as art.
Yeah, Billy Corgan is old.
What's that?
What?
What did you say, Joe Mike?
And Billy Corgan is old. It makes me feel old. And there's all these like young people in the crowd who have no clue. They're trying to sing along to the song, and it's like they're not even close.
Nice.
Well, Shane, while you're still there, Brenna says hi.
Oh, great. Tell her I said hi.
She just texted me.
Nice.
They're off the set now, so. Netflix is making a sequel or prequel to Z Nation.
Get out.
It's being filmed in Alberta, so she's in Alberta on that.
Nice.
Hulk 3D Proto answered, and Joe Mike answered this in the chat, but just for the sake of the stream, if you could use abrasive materials on the MMU2 with other stuff, and can you do this on the new palette as well? I don't know the answer for the palette as far as...
I got the answer for the palette via other sources.
Well, the internal support abrasives, like the extruders and stuff inside of that?
Yeah, it's all metal hob gears, or it's all steel hob gears on the inside. Dave Randolph did come up with a good point that the cutter inside the pallet could eventually wear down if you used a lot of abrasive after a long time. But other than that, I mean, using...
That's actually another good question. Shane's here, so he can probably answer that. For Prusa's side of things, I'm not sure about the pallet. Joe, Mike, you might know this answer. The cutter in the pallet and the cutter in the MMU, are they replaceable blades?
For the MMU2, yes. You would have to take apart the selector, slide it out, but it is replaceable.
Okay.
On the pallet, it is a modular system. So if your cutter system is not working, you can actually remove the system and replace it.
All right.
Just the cutter part.
Does the original pallet and the pallet plus, do they have the cutter in them as well?
They do, but it is a giant wheel that has the cutter blade on it, and it is replaceable, but it's also a nightmare.
Oh. That was one of the benefits to the new pallet, is everything's modular, so it's not as much of a pain to service.
Oh my gosh, the new one is head over heels better designed as far as serviceability and general engineering, period. I mean, just getting rid of the magnet, as soon as I saw that there was no magnet and no external scroll wheel, I was like, why can't you guys have just done that the first time? It's like, this seriously.
Watching a product mature.
Huh?
The joy of watching a product mature.
Yeah, it is. It's frustrating, but simultaneously it's nice to see that, they took the biggest headaches that we were experiencing as a community and said, you know what, let's find a way to eliminate those headaches. Now, granted, there's probably going to be more headaches in the future. But
just headaches.
Different ones, yeah. And I'm sure it'll be the same with the MMU. We've eliminated the multiple stepper motors on top of the unit with the quad flexor and all that stuff. But who knows what other issues have crept up during beta testing, and it's like Shane had mentioned. That's why they do the beta testing and why they take their time taking things to market and shipping. They want to make sure that to reduce as many of those issues up front as they can. So.
Matt, you mentioned something earlier on that I hadn't realized. You do not have a MK2 or an MK3?
No, I'm not in the Cool Kids Club.
Are you the only one of the Friday night streamers that doesn't have one?
Seriously, I'm starting to think so.
Come to the dark side.
I would love to have a Prusa. I really would, just in all honesty, just to say I have a Prusa. They are, I don't disagree. They are awesome printers, but the very first time I ever actually saw a Prusa in person was when I showed up at Nilla Bean's house during his live stream. That was the very first time I ever actually saw a Prusa in person. Oh. They're awesome printers, and I seriously would love to have one. I'd love to have something that the i3 designs that I have, or that I've had, either which way, were based off of. They print well, not without issues, but no printers without issues. I mean, we're not at that state in the game where there aren't issues with printing, and I'm not sure that we'll ever be unless they come out with desktop injection molding. But I'd love to have one. It's just not in the cards for me to get one. When I started out, I was fascinated with deltas. Even against all odds, Matt at Printed Solid was pushing me not to get a delta for my first printer. And I was just so intrigued with how a delta worked that I bought a delta kit and put it together for my first one. Everything after that has either been Cartesian or Core XY style printers. The i3.
Was that the Folgertech kit?
What's that?
Did you get a Folgertech kit?
Yeah, the Castle was my first one, same as you.
That was my first Delta. It's the only one I kept, and the row stock is actually boxed.
For sale.
It's boxed up. It's going to its new owner tomorrow.
Is it?
Yeah.
I was tempted there. So the one style printer that still also really intrigues me that I haven't gotten to look at too much. I saw one at Murph, and I think they were at Earth too, is the Polar printers.
Yes.
There is a Polar printer for $250, 15 miles from my house on Craigslist right now.
I've been trying to get Bill to frickin' publish the parts and instructions to convert the Monoprice Select Mini to a Polar. And I almost had it at Murph. I was like, Bill, I need the STLs and I need the firmware and all that stuff. And he's like, well, the firmware, you can just use what's on it. And as far as STLs, I got them with me, and I was like, okay, great. Bring your flash drive and I'll grab them from you. Yeah. And then by the time that I was able to get around to doing that, he had already left. And I was like, no, again, another year.
Oh, you should have told me that, because I'm not sure if it was him or not, but there was a Polar Monoprice Mini at Earth.
Yeah, it's probably
not sure if it was him or not.
I know that a handful of people have done the conversion, but I don't know. I'd like to do the conversion. Polar printers, seriously, the way that you were obsessed with how the Castle operates. I mean, I was obsessed with how Delta operates as well. But when I saw a Polar printer, that became my new Delta.
I haven't done a lot of reading on them. I saw it at Murph. That was the first time I ever saw a Polar. But my mind was blown with that one. When I first saw that, I'm like, how is that doing that?
The only other one other than the Polar that really will make me sit there and watch it the whole time is a Skara printer.
Which one?
A Skara. That's the arm that prints on the table.
See, I figured that's what Ross was planning on doing. When I first saw the picture of his arm, I'm like, don't tell me you're putting an extruder out on the end of that.
Oh, well, it would just flick melted plastic everywhere.
But yeah, Richard, to answer your question, no, I do not have a Prusa. I would absolutely love to.
Check the not check pawn shops. Check eBay and some other places for broken ones. The MK2S that I got, I just got it a couple of months ago because
that's
I guess
the Prusa, right?
Huh?
That's the Blusa.
No, this one's the Chet Prusa.
Oh, okay.
My Blusa is my original MK2.
Oh, you reprinted all the parts for that. Okay.
Yeah, and the Chet Prusa is my MK2S. It's an actual MK2S. The Blusa, I did the MK2S upgrade to, so It's got the U-bolts and all that stuff. But the Chet Prusa is the one that my buddy found in a box full of umbrellas during a pallet sale. And he was able to get the whole pallet for like 30 some bucks. And all it needed was 3D printed parts reprinted and the whole printer reassembled and recalibrated. It did need one of the end stops resoldered, but heck, it was up, and then the heat shrink and done.
Yep.
So, that was, he actually bought the pallet, gave me the printer, and took the pallet of umbrellas because he's going to resell the umbrellas. But he just gave me the printer, and I reprinted the parts, and now that is what is actually hooked up to the friggin' pallet. That is ironic. Holy crap! How did I not see that before?
What am I missing?
The printer that I got
Oh,
on a pallet is hooked up to my pallet.
nice.
It was fate.
Yep.
Wow.
It was meant to be.
Didn't even think about that until now. Speaking of, here it is. It's still going to town on these Catan pieces. This is for ore, by the way. This is the ore tile.
Nice. Yeah, that was cool. As soon as you showed that, I was like, ooh, because I've been wanting to print Catan tiles.
Heck yeah. I was going to actually do the regular ones and then have my buddy paint them, who's a really good artist. But these are just going to be hellaciously awesome. And they have these bases that you print that have magnets in them, so you just snap them together in the configuration that you want.
I was going to print mine out and send them to Martin, but then I realized I might as well just buy a pallet.
After you get done with shipping, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, this printer that this is printing on was a free printer because it was found during a pallet sale.
Yeah.
I'm waiting. My father-in-law goes to auctions at a minimum every other Saturday, and he's been given specific instructions that if he's ever at an auction and sees something that looks like a 3D printer or CNC anything that's got motors on it and some kind of tool head, he's to buy it. Because around here, you know, people who go to auctions have no idea what a 3D printer is. And I bought an Apple TV. That was my first smart TV device for $1 at the sale because everybody thought that it was just some attachment for an iPod. And that was it.
Yeah, the guy who ended up finding this was already in the business of buying pallets that had technology in them.
Right.
And he was mainly doing like computer grade technology, so hard drives, RAM, stuff like that. And he talked to me a little about getting a 3D printer because he wanted a 3D printer to play with. And so he started brushing up on 3D printers, and I'd actually told him to get a Prusa to be his first printer. I was like, it's a kit, you'll learn about it, how it all operates. It's the best thing that you can do, and it's a dynamite printer, even for beginners. And so he started brushing up on Prusa, and he actually sent me pictures of the original pieces of this inside of the cardboard box, and it was all like broken up and mangled with the original orange pieces. And as soon as I saw the orange and I saw the LCD, I was like, that's a Prusa. And he's like, yeah, it's just in this box full of crap. And I was like, how much do they want for the box of crap?
Shane, what's Prusa do with shipping damaged printers?
For the ones that we get back, we strip them down and use whatever's usable, whatever's left that's usable, they get recycled back into the farm. So if one of the farm printers gets broken, we have parts for it, and we don't mess around with our own stock for the kits.
That makes sense. As Joe Mike was talking about that, it made me think about that because, you know, we have the postal service, so.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes like on the social media pages, you know, on the Prusa Facebook pages, you know, you'll see people just like, you know, that's it, I have it, you know, they can, and they'll just put it up for sale, and then whoever will bid on it, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I almost bought my first CR10 that way.
I agree with Mitch. It'll be interesting to see what Martin does with the palette.
Yeah.
With all his Icelandic scenery.
Well, not only that, but he's got an amazing sense of creativity. He's got a creative mind. He's one of the few people I know, other than like you, Richard, that has an absolute creative mind and analytical, mechanically inclined mind that both operate simultaneously in unison together perfectly. Like most of us, I mean, I'll be the first person to say that I'm very much an analytical, mechanical kind of guy. And when it comes to painting or thinking creatively in anything other than music, you might as well give a pen and paper to a monkey and tell him to draw you something pretty. But you know, it's like to see the things that you've done with your railroad, you know, pieces that you've printed on the Moai, and you know how you do the artistic aspects of that, but also knowing the technology and what you had to go through in order to get all that to work. You know, that kind of stuff just makes me kind of pissed off at guys like you.
I got a really neat project that I'm just starting. We just had a family reunion, and my great grandfather built the first house in Medicine Hat, southern Alberta. This is the first house on the north side of the river, and it had a turret, and it was an amazing house. I've got a whole bunch of pictures coming. But at the family reunion, someone had a copy of the blueprints for the house. And so I now have those. And so I'm going to make a 1/4 inch O-scale model of my grandfather's house.
Of course you
Nice.
are.
And it's going to be a blast to work on that, because you know this house was built around 1885, and beautiful woodwork on it. And special feature of it is the family pet was a bear. They had a black bear, and it was brought to my grandfather when it was very young. He ran a general store and traded with the Indians a lot. And one day they came in, they said, we killed the mother. We didn't know about this cub. Will you take it? And so he took it. And there's all sorts of pictures of Nancy the bear, the family pet. So that'll be modeled as well. I have to start sourcing some models of a bear to put in front of the house.
You may be the actual most interesting man in the world.
I've just had a lot of interesting experiences.
I
found out the guy that used to live at our house was on the last Texas cattle drive before the fences came in. And he was also a World War I vet. And he may have ridden on the, for the Yukon Gold Rush. They did a cattle drive because they're running out of food. So the cattle actually came from my great-grandfather's ranch. And they drove them through, all the way through Alberta and up into the Yukon. So
the best I can tell you is that my grandma cooked spaghetti. So it's 12:30.
Yep.
And I feel the dad responsibility kicking in. Matt, I'm not sure if how this is set up. Because we were testing it earlier, and both Matt and I had somewhat control over this, and I was wondering if I could exit and then Matt could take over.
I'm going to crash here.
Matt, you're muted. Hold on. You're muted.
Stupid mute button. Now I was going to say, I think, you know, we've probably hit the extent of the multi-material for now. I'm not sure with the other styles, because right now the most popular multi-material topic is palette and Prusa MMU V2. So I don't know that we necessarily need to continue the stream, so to speak. I think we're at a good stopping point for it.
Okay. Well,
do we have topics for upcoming streams yet? Or?
Oh, yes. Damn it. I forgot to do it during the outros. Jerry Mike, you did too. So for those of you still watching, which there's
I talked about the EU stream at the very beginning.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sitting here when you did that. Yeah, so just for anybody who caught on late, there is now the European time zone friendly F3D PCH streams. The next one is this coming Friday, August 31st, at 1900 UTC, and that will be hosted here on this channel. The lead host is going to be Martin of 3D Printing Iceland.
Fine.
And I don't know if they have print failures is the topic that they're shooting for right now. Now that may still be subject to change, They're kind of discussing that in a side chat right now. 1900 UTC for those of us in the United States. That's 3 p.m. Eastern. Eastern Daylight Time. That'll obviously change when we change time zone or daylight saving.
Stupid daylight savings time.
So,
Okay. And then we're still looking for a host for our next.
correct.
Is in 2 weeks.
Yep, 2 weeks. The next US stream is September 7th. I will be on vacation, ending my vacation. That'll be my last day. I'll be driving home the next day, so I probably won't be on the stream that week. But nice thing is now, some of the delay before getting the word out was getting a host lined up for the stream. Usually doesn't happen until the week of the stream, and occasionally that doesn't happen until the day before the stream. Nice thing is now, for those of you who've subscribed to the Friday night channel, thank you. They will always be on this channel now. So if you subscribe, hit the notifications, you'll get notified when we go live, both EU and US time zone friendly streams. So best way to track us now is to subscribe here. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on Twitter as well, and Instagram, but I really haven't posted anything on Instagram.
Cool. Well, do we want to run through outros one more time?
I think everybody knows who we are if they're still hanging on.
Yeah, I think we got our usuals. It's up to you guys.
Well, I was going to mention that, yeah, we should update contact info on the stream or on the channel. I wonder if there's a way we can put in some of the permanent hosts and things like that on there.
Well, we can use a couple different available tools and do one that's always on every stream.
And I did like your little promo.
Yes. We're going to shoot for the promo that Joe Mike did. Ben sort of did one last week on his channel. Ben from Hulk 3D Proto for the EU stream, announcing that. Joe Mike did the pre-recorded, what do you want to call that? Pre-show?
I call it a bumper.
Bumper or buffer?
Promo.
A bumper. B-U-M-P-E-R.
Okay. Yeah, we're going to shoot for trying to do that bumper video each stream. We'll see how that goes. That sort of, Joe Mike brought that idea up. So I think a lot of people like that video. Heck, the Friday night channel, as it stands right now, is at 69 subscribers. Actually, that's not right.
69, dude.
75. 25 more subscribers, and we can get the YouTube address, custom address. So I'm really trying to push to 100 as fast as we can. After 100, I really don't care. I just want to get to 100 to get the custom URL for it.
All right.
So
yeah, and so I'm gonna wrap this thing up because I'm about to freaking pass out.
I have to rescue my potato chips from the cat.
First world problems. Shane, man, I truly appreciate you stopping by, and also for hanging out with us for the duration, and also being a vibrant member of the 3D printing community. It's always awesome to see you in the various streams and also on Twitter, getting in there and yes,
It's greatly appreciated. I'd love to have I very much appreciate the invite, the chance to talk and, hang out with you guys afterwards. For me, I love doing it, and it's greatly appreciated.
yeah, you're more than welcome to come back anytime, Shane. Tomorrow, not tonight anymore, but tomorrow I'll DM you info for the Facebook group and stuff where we post this Hangout link.
That'd be great.
Yeah. Got an open door, man.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Have a good night, all.
Yeah. For those, just a reminder, this is the channel from now on. So whoever the next host is, the video will be here on this channel. Make sure to check out everyone's YouTube channels and Twitter stuff and all the contacts and all like that. And, you know, go subscribe to channels and follow, whatever. It's up to you all. At this point, I'm too tired to care. But anyways, I want
to fall apart after the 2-hour mark. So
do what?
I said we start to fall apart after the 2-hour mark, especially pushing the 3-hour mark.
Oh man, it's even worse after kids. Anyway, so thank you again to Shane and to Mitch for stopping in and talking about the palette and the Prusa MMU2 respectively. And thank you everyone who was in the chat and for your amazing questions and input and just being an active part in the community as well and coming in and staying up with us depending on where you are. So with that, I'm Joe Mike Terranella and this is it. So happy printing. God bless. Be good to each other. Someone find me a sleep tree. We'll see you later.
Have a good one, guys. Thank you.